Chapter 53:27. It was a ball of holy light. Within the holy light, there seemed to be a creature. When he saw the ball of holy light, Lin Feng felt that his soul seemed to have calmed down. That ball of holy light was so divine and extraordinary. Lin Feng was puzzled. What kind of existence was inside the holy light? He couldn't see clearly, but he guessed that it was a divine creature. At this moment, balls of black fog rolled. Within the black fog, a terrifying creature appeared. At the same time, there were also some other terrifying creatures. For example, Lin Feng saw a few silver creatures. He couldn't see their specific appearance, but those silver creatures were extremely tyrannical. There were also a few creatures with wings on their backs. There were also a few creatures surrounded by golden light. There were also some other creatures. These creatures were too powerful, each more terrifying than the last. Their auras were terrifying. It made one's heart tremble. Normally, the appearance of such a creature would be an extremely terrifying thing. But now, there were actually so many terrifying living beings. Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter. Were all these terrifying creatures attracted by the existence shrouded in holy light? It was an existence shrouded in holy light. What kind of creature was it? It could actually attract so many terrifying creatures. A group of terrifying creatures surrounded that holy creature. That holy creature really couldn't escape, even if it had wings. Could it be? The Demon Lord's voice suddenly resounded in Lin Feng's mind. Demon Lord, do you know what kind of creature that existence is? Lin Feng asked. It's very likely to be a divine beast. The Demon Lord said, but his tone didn't seem to be very certain. A divine beast? What kind of creature is that? Lin Feng asked doubtfully. This was the first time he had heard of such a creature. The Demon Lord said, it's one of the purest holy beasts in the world, and its blood is even purer than that of a unicorn. Lin Feng asked, holiness and darkness are opposites. Is that why the creatures in the Forbidden Zones want to kill it? The Demon Lord said, things are not that simple. Those restricted region creatures wanted to kill it, and that's not the only reason. I think the main reason is that they want to eat the flesh and blood of the holy beasts. Eat the flesh of a sacred beast. Weren't sacred beasts supposed to restrain these creatures? Why did these creatures of the forbidden region still want to eat the flesh of the sacred beasts? Won't that harm their bodies? Lin Feng asked in confusion. The Demon Lord said, living holy beasts naturally have a great restraining effect on these creatures of the forbidden area. However, a dead holy beast can't control the creatures in the forbidden area. Furthermore, the flesh and blood of a holy beast are incomparably pure, so eating the flesh of a holy beast can allow any creature's life force to evolve. That's why the creatures in the Forbidden Zones covet the flesh and blood of the holy beasts. I see. Lin Feng nodded. I don't know why this holy beast appeared in the Forbidden Zone. Logically speaking, such a creature shouldn't appear in a place like the Forbidden Zone, right? The Demon Lord said, indeed, it shouldn't appear in a place like the Forbidden Zone. That's why I'm guessing that the holy beast must have come to the barren sky ridge from somewhere in the outside world. Oh, if that's the case, the holy beast must have its own goal. I wonder what it's trying to achieve. Lin Feng asked. I'm not sure, but no matter what its goal is now that it has entered the barren sky ridge, it has become the target of the creatures in the Forbidden Zones. They'll definitely do everything they can to kill it, the Demon Lord said. As soon as the Demon Lord finished speaking, the creatures in the Forbidden Zones began to attack the holy beast. All sorts of terrifying attacks were launched at the holy beast. The creatures in the Forbidden Zones all possessed powerful techniques. Their combined combat power was naturally shocking. A holy light barrier appeared around the holy beast's body. The holy light barrier protected the holy beast's body. under the protection of the holy light cover. All kinds of attacks were blocked by the holy light cover. The creatures in the forbidden zones let out deep roars and gave up on attacking the holy beast from a distance. They discovered that their divine abilities couldn't break through the holy beast's holy light barrier. Therefore, the creatures in the forbidden zones decided to attack the holy beast at close range. The creatures in the forbidden zones quickly attacked the holy beast. Soon, they arrived outside the holy beast. Then they waved their claws or weapons and attacked the holy beast. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of violent collisions could be heard. The holy light barrier outside the holy beast's body was attacked. The holy light barrier's power was naturally very strong. The holy light barrier's defensive power was very strong. However, the attacks of so many creatures in the forbidden zones were also no small matter. Under the attacks of so many creatures in the forbidden zones, the holy light barrier began to shatter. That holy beast is in trouble, Lin Feng said. The demon lord nodded and said, "That's normal. Why don't you see what kind of existences its opponents are?" Although the holy beast can restrain those creatures in the forbidden zones, there are too many of them. If it's lucky, it can break out of the encirclement. If it's unlucky, it might be killed by them. At that time, it will become their food. Lin Feng couldn't help but nod. The situation was indeed very dangerous. Of course, nothing could be certain. Perhaps the holy beast had an extremely powerful technique that it hadn't used yet. Once it used it, it might be able to sweep away all the creatures in the forbidden zones. At this time, the holy beast began to counterattack those terrifying creatures in the forbidden zones. The holy beast released many holy light balls. The balls of sacred light blasted at the creatures of the forbidden zone one by one. Bang, 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 accompanied by a series of violent collisions. Those holy light balls and the creatures in the forbidden zones collided fiercely. Those creatures in the forbidden zones were all sent flying by the holy light balls. As the creatures in the forbidden zones were restrained by the holy beast. Therefore, when those creatures in the forbidden zones were attacked by the holy light balls, many creatures in the forbidden zones were severely injured. However, the terrifying thing was the injuries of those creatures in the forbidden zones were rapidly recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. End of chapter. Chapter 53:28. Upon seeing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. He said, "It would make sense if a few of those creatures had this near undying ability, but for almost every one of them to have this ability, that's a little unreasonable, isn't it?" The demon lord couldn't help but nod. Those creatures were indeed too strange. It was almost as if they were all undying and indestructible. Their abilities were truly abnormal. He had no idea how they all had this ability. The demon lord said, "Perhaps this is the difference between the forbidden zones and the other death zones." Lin Feng thought about it and felt that this was indeed a possibility. Some sort of invisible power. It had changed everything. Because of this, the creatures of the forbidden zones had a near undying ability. Even if they suffered serious injuries, they would be able to recover in an extremely short amount of time. This ability was truly shocking. Of course, Lin Feng had the impression that not all the creatures in the forbidden areas had such an ability. Most likely, only the creatures of the forbidden zones with a relatively high level of life force had this ability. The reason for this was because Lin Feng had killed several Yin corpses earlier. Those Yin corpses could only be considered very ordinary creatures of the forbidden zones. If those Yin corpses also had this kind of undying and indestructible ability, they wouldn't be killed so easily, said Lin Feng. The creatures in the forbidden areas are extremely strong. If the holy beasts could injure them, The holy beasts might be able to defeat them. But now, the creatures in the forbidden areas are immortal, so the holy beasts' attacks are useless against them. If the holy beasts want to survive, there's only one way, and that's to find a way to break through the encirclement, said Lin Feng. The demon lord said, I wonder if the divine beast will be able to break out of this encirclement. Lin Feng and the demon lord naturally hoped that the divine beast would be able to break out of this encirclement. A divine beast that represented justice and holiness shouldn't die in a place like this. However, the creatures of the forbidden zones were too terrifying. They began to charge at the divine beast. Again and again, they attacked the divine beast. And again, the divine beast repelled the creatures of the forbidden zones. However, the creatures of the forbidden zones quickly recovered from their injuries and continued to attack the divine beast. When they reached the divine beast's side, they would attack the holy barrier protecting the divine beast. They wanted to kill the divine beast. They had to break through the divine beast's defenses first. These creatures of the forbidden zones were very smart. Naturally, they knew what to do. Bang, 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 bang. One after another, dull sounds of collisions. The attacks of the creatures from the forbidden lands landed on the holy light barrier. The cracks on the holy light shield became more and more severe. Finally, the divine barrier, the sacred beast, was exposed to the attacks of the creatures of the forbidden zones. This time, the creatures in the forbidden zones immediately let out a series of excited roars. Those guys. Now, there was hope for them to kill the divine beast. So, each and every one of them became extremely crazy. A group of creatures from the forbidden zone once again charged toward the divine beast. The divine beasts released many divine light balls to attack the creatures in the forbidden zone. Most of the creatures in the restricted regions were sent flying. Once in a while, one or two creatures from the forbidden lands would attack the sacred beasts. Then, give the divine beast a blow like that. Puff, puff. The sound of tearing could be heard along with the divine beast screams. Obviously, the divine beast was injured by the enemy's attacks. Wave after wave of attacks. The divine beast's injuries were getting worse. This was an extremely bad situation for the divine beast. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before the divine beast died under the siege of the creatures of the forbidden zones. Although the divine beast wanted to break out, but after trying many times, it didn't succeed. Therefore, it was basically impossible to break out. These creatures of the forbidden zones deserved to die. Lin Feng couldn't help but curse. He was a little hesitant, because Lin Feng felt that the divine beast was too pitiful. He wanted to save the divine beast. But there were too many creatures of the forbidden zones. Lin Feng's cultivation had indeed improved greatly. His battle strength was many times stronger than before, but against so many creatures of the forbidden zones, it was still like sending himself to death, rashly killing his way out. Not only would he not be able to save the divine beast, it was also possible that he would die. If he didn't save the divine beast would die without a doubt. Lin Feng was in a dilemma. Right, those 9 heavenly thunder source pearls should be able to come in handy, right? Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter. Previously, he had brought out more than 3,009 heavenly thunder source pearls. With so many 9 heavenly thunder source pearls, they should be able to erupt with an extremely powerful power. The commotion outside was so big that the old man and Xiao Yi were also awakened. The old man's injuries had recovered to about 60 to 70%. Although he hadn't fully recovered, it was already quite good that he could recover to this extent in such a short period of time. Lin Feng said, "We'll part here. You guys be careful." With that, he rushed out. Lin Feng used the darkness of the night to sneak towards the location of the battle. This guy seems to want to save that spirit beast. Xiao Yi couldn't help but say. She didn't know the divine beast. That was why she used the word spirit beast to replace the divine beast's name. The old man nodded and said, "That's indeed the case. He's really a kind-hearted person. It's really not easy to maintain a kind heart in the world of cultivators." Very quickly, Lin Feng arrived at the periphery of the battlefield. A group of creatures of the Forbidden Zones were attacking the divine beast, so they didn't sense Lin Feng. "Blow you bastards to death." Lin Feng saw the divine beast blow away the group of creatures of the Forbidden Zones who were attacking it. Sogu's website, Chapter 53:29. Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. Would the explosion of the Nine Heavens Thunder Source Pearl injure the divine beast severely? Please don't. This wasn't yours truly's original intention. But thankfully, the divine beast managed to stabilize itself in midair. At this moment, the energy dissipated. The beings of the Forbidden Lands who were sent flying began to crawl up from the ground. Even though they were injured, their injuries weren't severe. As for the beings of the Forbidden Lands who were engulfed by the destructive energy, they didn't die. However, some of the creatures from the Forbidden Zones were badly wounded by the explosion. Some of them only had half of their bodies left. Even after suffering such serious injuries, the creatures of the Forbidden Zones still didn't die. Not only were they not dead, their injuries were recovering rapidly. Holy **T. Seeing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but cry out. Those beings of the Forbidden Lands really had life force. They were sick to the core. When the divine beast saw Lin Feng, it knew that Lin Feng had saved it. It then charged towards Lin Feng. Very quickly, the holy beast arrived in front of Lin Feng. Through the holy light, Lin Feng saw the appearance of the divine beast. The divine beast had the head of a dragon, but the horns of a unicorn. Its body was similar to a cheelant's, but it was covered with snow-white scales, and it had a pair of snow-white wings. Its aura was divine, but there were many wounds on the divine beast's body. These wounds were left behind by the beings of the Forbidden Lands. Fresh blood was still flowing out from many of the wounds. The methods of the beings of the Forbidden Lands were strange. Their attacks on the divine beast had a severe injury effect, just like how Lin Feng's 36 bamboo swords had a burning injury effect. It had a severe injury effect. This caused the divine beast's recovery to be very slow. Despicable human ant, how dare you spoil our plans? You deserve to die. The beings of the Forbidden Lands were thoroughly enraged. They were about to kill the divine beast when Lin Feng ruined their plans. They were mad with hatred. The beings of the Forbidden Lands chased after Lin Feng and the divine beast. "Run," Lin Feng said. He ran forward quickly. The divine beast followed behind Lin Feng. However, to avoid the attacks of the beings of the Forbidden Lands in the Forbidden Lands, it seemed to be a very unrealistic thing, because Lin Feng and the divine beast's movements would be greatly restricted, but the beings of the Forbidden Lands were not. Seeing the beings of the Forbidden Lands getting closer and closer, Lin Feng's mood was extremely bad. Seems like they were really going to catch up. If these guys to catch up, then it would be dangerous. At this critical moment, the old man and Xiao Yi appeared in the mountain forest in front of them. Come over here. When Lin Feng saw the old man and Xiao Yi, he quickly ran towards them. The divine beast, following Lin's, do teet hiss. They begot. To divine beast, there were God. Those array platforms formed a teleportation array. Seems like it was the divine beast's teleportation array. Actually, using the teleportation array in a place like the Forbidden Lands was extremely dangerous. Why was that? First of all, the laws of the Forbidden Lands were independent. The teleportation array could not teleport people out of the Forbidden Lands. Due to the chaotic space-time of the Forbidden Lands, the teleportation array could teleport the person to any place in the Forbidden Lands. It would be fine if they were teleported to a safe place. But what if they were teleported to a dangerous place? For example, teleporting to a being of the Forbidden Lands, or teleporting to an area covered by the power of time. That would be disastrous. Secondly, due to the chaotic space-time of the Forbidden Lands, many places were connected to broken space-time. When teleporting through the void, it was very likely to be swallowed by the broken space-time. Once it was swallowed by the broken space-time, that would be a tragedy. When the time came, they would be trapped in the broken space-time. Finally, the Forbidden Lands were filled with terrifying restrictions. If he triggered those restrictions during the teleportation, he would be in trouble. Many restrictions would have a chain reaction. When the time came, the person being teleported would be attacked by all kinds of restrictions. One had to know Lin Feng was avoiding those restrictions in the Forbidden Lands, not daring to touch them, because those restrictions were really terrifying. Once attacked by the restrictions, there was a high chance of dying miserably. Therefore, one could see how dangerous it was to teleport through space-time in the Forbidden Lands. But now, Lin Feng and the others were being targeted by those Forbidden Lands, other than teleporting through space-time. There seemed to be no other way. Right now, Lin Feng and the others were praying that nothing would go wrong. Shua, with a flash of light, Lin Feng and the others who had entered the teleportation array were teleported out. Those Forbidden Lands creatures rushed over, wanting to enter the teleportation array. But at this time, the teleportation platform collapsed. The teleportation array disappeared. Those Forbidden Lands creatures wished to enter the teleportation array to kill Lin Feng, and the others was completely dashed. In the forest, light flashed. Lin Feng and the others fell from the void. They stabilized their bodies and landed on the ground. Our luck seems to be pretty good, Xiao Yi said happily, although she had a fearless personality. But she was also afraid of death. Her life had just begun. She didn't want to die. Lin Feng smiled bitterly and said, "I don't think the situation is too good." "Why?" Xiao Yi asked doubtfully. Lin Feng pointed to a place deep in the forest. Xiao Yi turned and looked. The corner of her mouth twitched violently. Deep in the forest, there was a huge devil ape sitting there. The devil ape's body was leaning against a mountain peak. The devil ape's aura was incomparably terrifying, and there wasn't even any movement around. Obviously, this was the devil ape's territory. No Forbidden Lands creatures dared to make a move here because they were afraid of the devil ape in front of them. When Lin Feng and the others appeared, the devil ape had already opened its eyes. It was a pair of emotionless necks. When they looked into each other's eyes, they felt as if they were about to explode. Lin Feng felt as if his soul was about to sink. Those eyes. It was really too terrifying. The devil ape stood up. It was about 20 meters tall. It said coldly, "Outsiders, do you know that you have intruded into the Holy Devil Ape King's territory?" Lin Feng and the others smiled bitterly. This was actually a king of the Forbidden Lands. It was definitely an existence that could do as it pleased in the Forbidden Lands. End of chapter. Chapter 53:30. Cough, cough. I think there's some misunderstanding between us. We didn't barge in here on purpose. We know that you're busy, so we won't disturb you any longer. We'll leave now. Lin Feng said awkwardly. Then he and the others ran off into the distance. However, at that moment, the devil ape sneered and said, "Did I say you could leave? If I didn't say so, and you dare to leave, what will you do? What will the consequences be? I don't think I need to say more." Lin Feng and the others smiled bitterly. They had guessed that this terrifying existence wouldn't let them leave so easily. It was just as they had guessed. This terrifying existence was simply too powerful. Even in the most glorious and prosperous era, he was an existence that stood at the pinnacle of existence. Although there were some experts in this world who could defeat this terrifying existence, it was extremely rare to see such an existence. For example, in this ancient, strange, and terrifying forbidden zone, the ruler might be able to defeat the devil ape. It would be very difficult to find a second existence who could defeat the devil ape. Lin Feng and the others stopped. They had to stop even if they didn't want to. Otherwise, if they were attacked, it would be too dangerous. Even the creatures of the Forbidden Zone don't dare to trespass into my territory, but you actually did. Have you thought about how you'll die? The devil ape said indifferently. His voice was extremely cold, and it was filled with dense killing intent. At that moment, Lin Feng felt as if the temperature around him had dropped by many degrees. In fact, it wasn't the temperature that had dropped. It was because this fellow was too terrifying. His words made Lin Feng shudder. Lin Feng and the others felt a chill in their hearts. Lin Feng said, "Sir, you're so powerful. Is there a need to bicker with us? Doing so would be beneath your status." In truth, Lin Feng didn't want to say this either, because it might anger the devil ape. However, he had to say it now. It was useless to say soft words in front of the devil ape, so he could only say something to provoke it. Perhaps it would be useful. If it really didn't work, then there was only one method left. And that was Lin Feng still had a jade talisman that the golem had given him. He could leave after crushing it. However, the demonic ape had powerful means. Lin Feng felt that even if he crushed the jade talisman in front of the demonic ape, he would not be able to leave. This was only as a last resort. It was a method that he absolutely could not use. Hee, are you trying to goad me? Unfortunately, it's useless to me. The demonic ape sneered. Divine ape fist. Suddenly, the demonic ape growled. It threw a punch at Lin Feng and the others across space. A huge energy fist was condensed in the void. The power of that energy fist was extremely terrifying. A punch flew over. It was as if it could destroy everything. It was truly shocking. Attack together. Lin Feng shouted in a deep voice. Everyone nodded. Then he prepared his divine ability. He blocked the attacks of the demonic ape. Bang, bang, bang. Along with the sound of a violent collision, the divine abilities unleashed by Lin Feng and the others collided with the fist shadows condensed by the devil ape. Lin Feng and the others' divine abilities were instantly broken by the devil ape's fist shadows. Then Lin Feng and the others were sent flying. Their bodies slammed heavily into a mountain 1,000 meters away. The mountain peak shook violently. The demonic ape, it was really too powerful, too weak. Go to hell. The demonic ape sneered and threw a palm at Lin Feng and the others across space. Lin Feng took out his jade talisman and wanted to crush it. However, the demonic ape noticed it. The demonic ape's cold eyes swept over Lin Feng and sent him flying. The jade talisman fell to the ground. Not good. Lin Feng's expression suddenly changed. This time, they were in trouble. Just as the demonic ape's terrifying attack was about to land on them, the demonic ape suddenly let out a sound of surprise. The demonic ape stopped its attack. The demonic ape looked at Lin Feng with uncertainty. Lin Feng's spirit was slightly lifted. It seemed that the demonic ape seemed to be afraid, so it stopped. You are his son. The demonic ape finally confirmed one thing, and then said, Have you seen my father? Lin Feng looked at the demonic ape in shock. Yes, the demonic ape said. However, when it said these two words, its pupils shrank violently. It didn't know what happened back then. The demonic ape seemed to be very afraid in its heart. There was even a hint of fear. The old man, Xiao Yi, and even the sacred beast were very surprised. They didn't know who the father of the young cultivator beside them was. However, his father seemed to make the demonic ape so afraid. This origin, would it scare people to death? Are you friends? Lin Feng asked. Enemy, the demonic ape said somewhat exasperatedly. Hearing the demonic ape's words, the old man, Xiao Yi, and the sacred beast were even more shocked. Shouldn't it tear the enemy's son into pieces when it met the enemy's son, to vent the hatred in its heart? However, the demonic ape didn't do that. To be able to scare its enemy to the point that they didn't dare to attack its son. How strong was this person? It was already unimaginable. Why did you become enemies? Lin Feng asked. You have too many questions. The demonic ape looked coldly at Lin Feng and said, Hurry up and leave my territory. I don't welcome you here. Lin Feng knew that he wouldn't be able to get too many questions from the demonic ape, and this place wasn't suitable for him to stay for long. If he continued to stay, and the demonic ape went back on its word, it would be over. So, it was better to leave quickly. Lin Feng picked up the jade talisman. Then he said in a deep voice, Let's go. The group quickly left. Good for you, Lin Beitian. Your son dares to barge into the life-forbidden zone. If the heavens have eyes, I'll let him die here. I want to see what you look like when you go crazy. After Lin Feng and the others left, the demonic ape couldn't help but mutter to itself. The demonic ape thought of the scene when it first met Lin Beitian. That was in the world where time had reversed. The demonic ape would never forget that scene. In front of the Supreme Divine Court, the strong fought for supremacy to obtain the qualifications to enter the Supreme Divine Court. The experts who participated in the battle included the rulers of the Death Impasse, the rulers of the Life Forbidden Zone, the top experts of the Wasteland, the top experts of the Foreign World, and even a brother of the mastermind behind the scenes. In that chaotic battle, the world ruler's brother from the same clan won the battle in the end. Everyone thought that he would enter the Supreme Divine Court. But at this moment, the arrival of a man changed all of this. And that man, it was Lin Beitian. He was like a demon and a god, tearing the brother of the mastermind in half. End of chapter. Chapter 53:31. There were some things that could not be forgotten even after countless years. For example, what happened outside the Supreme Divine Court back then. There were some people that could not be forgotten even after countless years. Life was sometimes so wonderful. The devil ape sat on the ground again, its huge body leaning against the rock wall. Its thoughts once again returned to what happened in the reverse time world. Actually, the devil ape knew, perhaps Lin Beitian. He didn't remember it at all. At that time, some rulers of the Death Zone and the Life Zone besieged Lin Beitian. They wanted to force Lin Beitian to hand over the things he got from the Supreme Divine Court. At that time, the devil ape only made one move and was sent flying by Lin Beitian's palm. And then, it fainted. Speaking of which, it seemed quite embarrassing. The prideful demonic ape was infuriated by Lin Beitian's actions, which was why he hated Lin Beitian. But other than hatred, perhaps it was more helplessness, because it felt that Lin Beitian didn't know who it was at all. After Lin Feng and the others left the devil ape's territory, they let out a sigh of relief. However, they didn't go too far away, because there were basically no terrifying creatures near the devil ape's territory. At this time, they could heal and rest at ease. The old man and the sacred beast were both injured. They should find a place to rest now. In fact, it was because they had just been sent flying by the devil ape's punch. Xiao Yi was also a little injured. Lin Feng's injuries were quickly healed by his undying bloodline. They found a cave to cultivate in. Lin Feng used a restriction to cover the entrance of the cave. The old man, Xiao Yi, and the sacred beast all began to heal. The sacred beast's healing method was quite interesting. A large amount of holy light surged out of the sacred beast's body, enveloping the sacred beast within. Then, the holy light actually turned into a huge sacred egg. The sacred beast was wrapped in the huge sacred egg. Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter. This was the first time he had seen such a healing method. It did look a little strange. However, there were too many strange things in this world. So seeing such a thing happen, it was also quite normal. Lin Feng sat cross-legged and began to regulate his breathing. 2 hours later, Lin Feng had recovered to his peak state. The old man, Xiao Yi, and the sacred beast were still healing their wounds. Not long after, Xiao Yi also woke up. She looked at Lin Feng and snorted. I didn't expect you to have such an extraordinary background. Tell me, who is your father? Lin Feng said, if you agree to be my little wife, I'll tell you. Hearing this, Xiao Yi's pretty face couldn't help but slightly redden. She angrily looked at Lin Feng and said, shameless. After pondering for a while, Xiao Yi added another sentence, scum. In Xiao Yi's eyes, Lin Feng's image had already been set. A shameless scum with a good background. Thank you for the compliment. Lin Feng said. Xiao Yi was very angry. This guy's shamelessness was beyond her imagination. Xiao Yi's desire to teach Lin Feng a lesson did not change, but this wasn't the place to teach Lin Feng a lesson. If she attacked him and attracted those terrifying creatures, she would really want to cry. Thus, Xiao Yi told herself to be patient. She had to be patient. Xiao Yi looked at Lin Feng and asked, why did you enter the desolate heaven ridge? To find the desolate heaven emperor. Lin Feng said, you want to find the desolate heaven emperor too? Why are you looking for him? Xiao Yi asked, puzzled. Lin Feng said, I have my own goals. You'll know in the future. Xiao Yi said, if you don't want to tell me, then don't tell me. What's so great about that? Lin Feng said, why are you so insistent on finding the desolate heaven emperor? Maybe the desolate heaven emperor isn't your ancestor. It's possible that someone is impersonating your ancestor. He's definitely our ancestor. Finding him will be of great help to our race. Xiao Yi said. Lin Feng said, I can tell you a big secret. What secret? Xiao Yi asked, puzzled. When those existences decide to take refuge in a land of death or a forbidden zone, they have to pay a certain price. Therefore, those existences can't leave the land of death or the forbidden zone. If they really want to leave, they have to go to certain places, but those places aren't in the world where the land of death or the forbidden zone is. If they enter the land of death or the forbidden zone, they'll have to pay a terrible price. If the desolate heaven emperor is really your ancestor, he won't be able to help you if you run into trouble outside. Lin Feng said, is there such a thing? Xiao Yi couldn't help but frown. Of course. Lin Feng nodded. Xiao Yi's expression became unsightly. No one knew what she was thinking. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that Xiao Yi and the old man had come here to find the desolate heaven emperor because they needed his help. They didn't just want to see if their ancestor was still alive. But what was their purpose in looking for the desolate heaven emperor? That was unknown. 6 hours later, the divine beast had already recovered to its original state. After the divine beast came out, Lin Feng looked at it and asked, why did you take the risk to come here? I heard that there's a way to reverse time here, so I came here to find a way. The divine beast spoke in the human language. Its voice sounded like that of a 7 or 8-year-old child. Obviously, the divine beast hadn't reached adulthood yet. This kind of powerful creature had a relatively long childhood. For example, humans reached adulthood at the age of 16. These powerful creatures would most likely need hundreds of years to reach adulthood. For example, Bibi, if converted to human age, was actually a 7 or 8-year-old child. But in reality, Bibi was more than 100 years old. Lin Feng hadn't expected the divine beast to come here because of this matter. If that was the case, then his previous guess was very likely correct. The desolate Heaven Emperor might really have a way to enter the world of time reversal. I have the same goal. Lin Feng said. The divine beast immediately became happy and asked, "Then do you have any clues?" Lin Feng said, "I should have found some clues. Just follow me." The divine beast hurriedly nodded. The next day, the old man also came out of seclusion. The old man's injuries hadn't completely recovered. However, they were much better than before. Lin Feng sensed that the old man's injuries were about 80% healed. "Young friend, what are your plans next?" the old man asked. Lin Feng said, "My plan is the same as yours. We're both going to look for the desolate Heaven Emperor, including the divine beast." The old man was slightly taken aback, but then he smiled and said, "It seems that there's some fate in the world that brought us together." Lin Feng and the others rested for a while before setting off again. They headed towards the depths of the desolate heaven ridge together. End of chapter. Chapter 53:32. The area where the devil ape was located was already very close to the core area. Therefore, Lin Feng and the others were not far from the place where Heavenly Emperor Huang was located. There was a reason why the deeper areas were safer. In the outer region and the central region, there were many creatures from the forbidden areas. In that area, there was no real master. It was different in the deeper regions. There were existences like overlords here. A overlord ruled a large area. Ordinary creatures from the forbidden areas did not dare to come here. If they were lucky, those overlords, they would not be able to discover Lin Feng and the others. The last time they met the devil ape, it was because their luck was too bad. They were directly teleported to the place where the devil ape was resting. Even if he wanted to hide from the devil ape's detection, it would be impossible to do so. Lin Feng and the others were already very close to the abyss at the core. About 2 hours later, Lin Feng and the others arrived at the abyss without any danger. They were about to meet Heavenly Emperor Huang. Anyone would be nervous. The old man and Xiao Yi were worried that this Heavenly Emperor Huang was not their ancestor. Lin Feng was worried that Heavenly Emperor Huang would harm him. The sacred beast must be worried about the same thing as Lin Feng. They arrived at the edge of the abyss. Then the old man said, "Heavenly Emperor Huang's descendant, Zhou Zitian, has come to pay his respects to Heavenly Emperor Huang." So this person's name was Zhou Zitian. Lin Feng had only just learned his name. However, Lin Feng had heard that Heavenly Emperor Huang's surname was not Zhou. Perhaps the rumors were wrong, or perhaps it was because the old man had taken his mother's surname. After the old man's voice fell, a sinister and terrifying aura spread out from the depths of the abyss. Then the black fog churned, and a pair of blood-red eyes appeared in the black fog. Those blood-red eyes, they looked coldly at the crowd. "It's you. I didn't expect you to still be alive." A voice was heard. It should be Heavenly Emperor Huang's voice. It seemed that Heavenly Emperor Huang knew the old man. Even though his appearance had changed due to the passage of time, his aura had not changed. So Heavenly Emperor Huang could still recognize which clan member the old man was from back then. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. From the looks of it, this Heavenly Emperor Huang was indeed the real Heavenly Emperor Huang. He was not an impersonator. The old man and Xiao Yi hurriedly knelt on the ground and saluted Heavenly Emperor Huang. The elder said, "Ancestor, we've been looking for you for a long time. I don't care why you've come to find me. but I have something to tell you. Our relationship has been severed countless years ago, so we shouldn't meet again." Heavenly Emperor Huang's words were resolute, not leaving any face. It seemed that Heavenly Emperor Huang really didn't want to care about his descendants. This guy, was he so heartless? That was his descendant. But on second thought, Lin Feng felt that perhaps Heavenly Emperor Huang Tian also had his own difficulties. The elder said, "Ancestor, our clan is in danger. Please help us." "I've already said that our destiny is over. I'll send you out of here," Heavenly Emperor Huang said. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows slightly. Heavenly Emperor Huang took the initiative to send the old man and Xiao Yi away. This showed that Heavenly Emperor Huang still cared about their kinship. If not, then why would he care about the life and death of the old man and Xiao Yi? The old man said, "Ancestor, take a look at Xiao Yi beside you. She has the same bloodline as you back then. If she can continue to grow, our clan will definitely be able to prosper." Heavenly Emperor Huang looked at Xiao Yi. After a long silence, he said, "Speak, what kind of crisis have you encountered?" "The all-kill tablet that suppressed our ancestral land is about to break through the suppression and come out. It has threatened to slaughter our entire clan," the old man said. When those blood-red eyes heard about the all-kill tablet, they couldn't help but shrink back slightly. It seemed the all-kill tablet was definitely something extraordinary and terrifying. However, Lin Feng didn't know what the all-kill tablet was. Whiz! A ray of devilish light flew out. The devilish light seemed to be wrapped around something. Because it was wrapped in devilish light, Lin Feng didn't see it. "I hope this thing can help you. From now on, don't come looking for me again. Next time, I won't see you again," Heavenly Emperor Huang said. "Thank you, Ancestor. I hope the Ancestor is well." The Ancestor and Xiao Yi kowtowed to Heavenly Emperor Huang. Shua! There was a flash of light. They disappeared without a trace. They must have been teleported out by Heavenly Emperor Huang. "What about you? Why did you come looking for me?" Heavenly Emperor Huang asked. "We want to enter the world where time is reversed. We hope that Senior Heavenly Emperor Huang can send us in," Lin Feng said. After hearing Lin Feng's words, Heavenly Emperor Huang laughed out loud. Lin Feng's words seemed like a joke to him. "You two ant-like things want to enter the world where time is reversed? What a joke, what a joke!" Lin Feng said, "Being weak isn't scary because we have the heart to become stronger, so we want to enter to increase our cultivation." Heavenly Emperor Huang sneered, "But you've forgotten where you are. This is the Barren Heaven Ridge, a forbidden zone for life. Do you think the Barren Heaven Ridge is a place you can enter as you wish? Entering the Barren Heaven Ridge is a path to death. I don't know how you manage to pass through so many dangers with your weak cultivation, but I don't mind killing you 2 ants." As soon as Heavenly Emperor Huang finished speaking, Lin Feng felt an extremely dense killing intent envelop his body. Lin Feng knew Heavenly Emperor Huang. He really wanted to kill them. This was a very bad thing. If Heavenly Emperor Huang really wanted to kill them, even if he was 10 times stronger than the sacred beast, he still wouldn't be Heavenly Emperor Huang's match. Even if he had a teleportation talisman, it probably wouldn't work. After all, it didn't work on the devil ape, let alone Heavenly Emperor Huang. Lin Feng hurriedly said, "Senior Heavenly Emperor Huang, don't you want to know how I know you can send people to the time reversal world?" Heavenly Emperor Huang couldn't help but frown slightly. He didn't attack immediately. Instead, he asked, "Why?" "Because of Senior Savage. He's my protector," Lin Feng said. Heavenly Emperor Huang's expression turned ugly when he heard the word savage. He had been forced to open a passage to the time reversal world by the savage. Heavenly Emperor Huang had naturally refused, and he had been defeated by the savage. In the end, he had been forced to compromise. Thinking about this, Heavenly Emperor Huang still felt infuriated. Now, Lin Feng had actually mentioned the savage, which had once again opened up a scar. Heavenly Emperor Huang looked coldly at Lin Feng and said, "Do you know that if you hadn't mentioned that guy, you might have had a quicker death? But now that you've mentioned that guy, you won't have a quick death even if you want to. I'm going to torture you so much that you'll beg for death." End of chapter. Chapter 53:33. Don't be so angry. I don't think the two of us have reached the point where we have to fight to the death. Lin Feng said. What Lin Feng needed to do now was to calm Huang Tiandi down, who asked the savage to beat Huang Tiandi to the point of vomiting blood. This humiliating memory infuriated Heavenly Emperor Huang. He couldn't accept it, and he felt like he was about to go mad with hatred. He wanted to kill Huang Tiandi. So, as long as he could calm Huang Tiandi down, there was still room for negotiation. Huang Tiandi sneered. "There is no possibility of negotiation between us. I can't beat the savage, but do you think I can't beat you?" As soon as he finished speaking, the exasperated Huang Tiandi attacked. In truth, Huang Tiandi was hidden in the black fog. However, he didn't reveal himself completely. He only revealed a pair of blood-red eyes. Huang Tiandi condensed a huge energy palm and grabbed at Lin Feng and the sacred beast. He wanted to capture Lin Feng and the sacred beast in one fell swoop. For a terrifying existence like Huang Tiandi, this didn't seem to be a difficult task. Lin Feng wanted to use heaven mending and the sacred beast to dodge Huang Tiandi's attack. However, Lin Feng discovered that the surrounding space had been completely sealed. Lin Feng couldn't escape through the void. The situation was very dangerous. However, at this critical moment, Lin Feng's destiny bloodline suddenly activated on its own. This was the bloodline of his father, Lin Beitian. Between heaven and earth, there were only two people with the destiny bloodline. Lin Beitian was the only one. It was Lin Feng. When Lin Feng's destiny bloodline awakened, a mysterious and ancient world appeared behind Lin Feng. In that ancient world, a man walked forward. A man walked over step by step. That man had an extraordinary aura, as if he was a god that had descended to the mortal world. When he saw the man, Huang Tiandi's expression changed. "Why, you are his son." Huang Tiandi was horrified. He would never be able to forget what happened in the time reversal world. He had led the demon ape and a few other kings of forbidden lands to attack Lin Beitian together with the rulers of other forbidden lands and kings of forbidden lands. What kind of terrifying power was this? However, in the end, but they couldn't accept it, Lin Bai activated his 10th level fate bloodline. Lin Beitian seemed to have transformed into the great Tao of destiny. Even though they were the rulers of forbidden zones, the rulers of danger zones, they were high and mighty. Their cultivation levels were much higher than Lin Beitian's. However, they were still trembling. His body was trembling. His soul was trembling. There weren't many living beings that could scare them anymore. And Lin Beitian, he was definitely that kind of person. Their fates no longer belonged to them. They wanted to resist. Yet, he didn't even have the courage to resist. Scram. At that time, Lin Beitian had only said one word. What kind of humiliating word was this? Who would dare to say such words to the ruler of a forbidden zone, the ruler of a danger zone? Therefore, the rulers of forbidden zones and danger zones were infuriated. But what could he do even if he was angry? They didn't dare to refute. These rulers of forbidden zones, danger zones, and those king-level powerhouses, they turned around and fled. No one dared to mention anything about what had happened at that time, because what happened back then was a blow to them. It was too big. They had nothing to say. Later, Heaven Emperor Huang heard that something had happened to Lin Beitian. However, Heaven Emperor Huang always felt that someone like Lin Beitian would never die. He would only be in trouble. He would become stronger and stronger. If it was possible, Heaven Emperor Huang never wanted to be with Lin Beitian again. There wouldn't be any interaction. But many times, things didn't go as planned. Like now, when Heaven Emperor Huang wanted to kill Lin Feng, he suddenly found out that Lin Feng was actually Lin Baitian's son. The savage was very powerful. Heaven Emperor Huang wasn't a match for the savage, but no matter how powerful the savage was, he wasn't the ruler of fate. Therefore, Heaven Emperor Huang wasn't afraid of the savage. But Heaven Emperor Huang was afraid of Lin Beitian. Back then, Lin Baitian's cultivation level hadn't increased yet. He was already at the 10th bloodline. He had become the ruler of fate. And as Lin Baitian's cultivation level increased, it was unimaginable how strong Lin Beitian was. Lin Feng saw his father materialize. He was extremely excited. Every time he saw his father materialize, Lin Feng couldn't calm down. As his knowledge increased, Lin Feng found out, back then his father, how terrifying was that? How many experts? He was defeated by his father. No wonder the people from the mastermind's world wanted to get rid of his father. They were afraid. Because they were afraid. His father, he was the person who destroyed the mastermind's world. So, before their father had fully grown up, the two of them had been together. Thus, he resorted to scheming against his own father. Heaven Emperor Huang, I think we can talk now. Lin Feng said. Heaven Emperor Huang's expression was gloomy. He was in an extremely bad mood. He was full of anger. There was nowhere to vent. But he had to listen to Lin Feng, because Heaven Emperor Huang really didn't want to offend Lin Feng's backer, Lin Beitian, because of these things. I heard that your father was killed by a seed demon. Heaven Emperor Huang narrowed his eyes and asked, said Lin Feng. You're quite well informed, said Lin Feng. Heaven Emperor Huang said, of course. Lin Feng said, the news you received is indeed correct. My father was indeed killed by a seed demon because of someone's plot. Sogu's website, Chapter 5334. I only need to say one thing, and you'll know how terrifying the world of time reversal is. Lin Feng didn't interrupt. He just listened carefully. The world where time has reversed is also known as the immortal burial ground. Countless epics have been buried there, and countless experts above the true immortal realm are buried there. There are even existences that have surpassed the saint realm. Lin Feng couldn't help but gasp. Those people are so powerful. How could they die there? Ha 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 ha. Huang Tian Di couldn't help but laugh. Extremely powerful? No, no, no. In a world where time is reversed, any living being can die, because there are even more terrifying existences in that world. Huang Tiandi said, even more terrifying existences? Are you talking about living beings? Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. I don't know what they are either. Heavenly Emperor Huang said, it could be a living creature or a supreme Tao law. I don't know what it is exactly, but there are often extremely terrifying dangers inside. Those dangers are enough to devour everything. Could it be the people from the mastermind's world causing trouble inside? Lin Feng couldn't help but ask. The mastermind's world? Impossible. How could the mastermind's world have that kind of ability? Huang Tiandi shook his head. It can't be, right? The mastermind's world is so powerful. How could they not have that kind of ability? Lin Feng asked doubtfully. Huang Tiandi said, "Of course they don't have the ability to control everything, because the existences that enter the world of time reversal are all extremely terrifying, including the alien world, the Western universe, the wasteland, and the three supreme realms. There are even some terrifying existences whose origins I don't know. Many existences are unimaginably powerful. Although the mastermind's world is powerful, they can only control the cycle of life and death in the Eastern universe. The Western universe, the alien world, and the wasteland are all beyond the control of the mastermind's world. Actually, when I entered the world of time reversal, I saw some of the mastermind's world's creatures. Although the mastermind's world's creatures are very powerful, many of them have died in the world of time reversal." Lin Feng's expression couldn't help but become solemn. The world reversed was actually so terrifying. Then he really had to pay more attention. What is the most important thing to pay attention to after entering the time reversal world? Lin Feng asked. Find some villages, towns, and tribes to take refuge in as soon as possible. That's the most important thing. And remember one thing. It's dark. Don't come out, Heavenly Emperor Huang said. It's already dark. Don't come out? What does that mean? Lin Feng couldn't help but ask. Heavenly Emperor Huang said, "What you mean is, when you go to the world where time has reversed, you will gradually come into contact with the extraordinary aspects of that world. There are many things that you will have to explore on your own, so there is no need to ask me about everything." Lin Feng smiled. Lin Feng nodded. Lin Feng nodded and said, "I have another question to ask you. You seem to have too many questions." Huang Tiandi said impatiently. Lin Feng said, "This is the last question. Hurry up and ask." Heavenly Emperor Huang said, "Why is that world called the time reversal world?" Lin Feng asked. Heavenly Emperor Huang said, "This is because no matter how long you stay in that world, when you come out, you will still appear at the same time you entered that world." After hearing Heavenly Emperor Huang's words, Lin Feng's face immediately revealed an expression of disbelief. Heavenly Emperor Huang's words were actually very easy to understand. For example, Lin Feng was currently chatting with Heavenly Emperor Huang. At this time, he had entered the time reversal world. He had stayed in the time reversal world for 10,000 years. Logically speaking, after Lin Feng came out, 10,000 years should have passed in the outside world. Even if the time reversal world had time laws that could affect the conversion ratio of different worlds, for example, 10 months in Lin Feng's time space was only 1 month in the outside world. However, no matter how the time was converted, there was one thing that couldn't be changed. That was, time was constantly flowing. Since time was flowing, the time when one came out could not be the time when one entered. Heavenly Emperor Huang's words could be understood in layman's terms. The time when one went in and came out, time passed by 0. However, his cultivation had increased by an unimaginable amount. It sounded too inconceivable. However, it was indeed true. Lin Feng said, "Senior Savage entered a few years ago, but now a few years have passed. If he comes out, won't he appear in the space-time of the past?" Heavenly Emperor Huang said, "You can understand it that way. Therefore, entering the time reversal world is something that goes against the operation of the great Tao of heaven and earth." Lin Feng couldn't help but nod. It was indeed as Heavenly Emperor Huang had said. After entering the world of time reversal, for those who entered it, when one came out, it was the same as when one came in. Time would pass by 0. However, for others, when they appeared, they would appear in the space-time of others. This way, it would cause space-time to become chaotic. Lin Feng said, "The time reversal world is so heaven-defying. It shouldn't be easy to come out, right?" "Of course it won't be easy." Heavenly Emperor Huang nodded. You need a teleportation stone to come out. As for how to get one, you'll find out once you enter the time reversal world. Lin Feng said, Then let's send the two of us into the time reversal world. Heavenly Emperor Huang said calmly, I can send you in for your father's sake. As for that divine beast, I can't help it even if I want to. Lin Feng said, Why are you making excuses when it's something I can do casually? In truth, Lin Feng had planned to ask Heavenly Emperor Huang to help summon Du Zhu and the others, who were waiting outside. Then he would send Du Zhu and the others in as well. Heavenly Emperor Huang sneered. You're saying that it's something I can do casually? How ignorant! Sending people into a time-reversed world is a great loss for me, said Lin Feng, shaking his head. I might even suffer the wrath of the heavens and die without a burial place. Lin Feng asked, Is it that dangerous? Heavenly Emperor Huang said unhappily, What do you think? Lin Feng couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that he would have to go in himself. At that moment, the divine beast looked at Heavenly Emperor Huang and said, I have a keepsake for you. Sogu, Chapter 53:35. Keepsake? What keepsake? Huang Tiandi couldn't help but feel puzzled. The divine beast spat out a ball of holy light. It was unknown what was contained within the ball of holy light. The ball of holy light flew towards Huang Tiandi. Huang Tiandi grabbed the ball of holy light. Huang Tiandi's pupils shrank slightly. He took a deep breath and said, All right, I'll send you in as well. Many thanks. The divine beast thanked him. Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter. He wondered what keepsake the divine beast had given to Huang Tiandi. It seemed like this divine beast had come prepared as well. We need to wait for 3 days. Huang Tiandi said, All right, we'll wait. Lin Feng said. Huang Tiandi then disappeared. After Huang Tiandi left, Lin Feng looked at the divine beast and asked curiously, What did you give Huang Tiandi? The divine beast said, It's a broken piece of jade. A broken piece of jade. What's that? Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter. The divine beast said, I obtained it by chance. I only know that the broken piece of jade was stained with blood. A voice inside told me that if I brought the jade to Huang Tiandi Ridge, I would be able to enter the world of time reversal. Thus, I felt that this broken piece of jade should be the keepsake to enter the world of time reversal. Thus, I gave it to Huang Tiandi to see if that was the case. Who would have thought that after testing it, I discovered that it was indeed the case? Lin Feng nodded and found a place to rest. At the bottom of the cliff, Huang Tiandi held the jade pendant in his hand, thinking about many things. In the end, he sighed. Some people, even after countless years, he still couldn't forget them. Huang Tiandi. There was also a woman he would never forget. Back then, that woman had once blocked a sure-kill attack for Heavenly Emperor Huang. She was heavily injured and on the verge of death. That woman loved Huang Tiandi very much. Huang Tiandi also loved that woman very much. After that woman escaped death, Huang Tiandi loved that woman even more deeply. They had thought that they would have a perfect and happy future. However, life was strange sometimes, especially for a man. Sometimes, power seemed to be greater than love. It was the 2nd year after their marriage. Heavenly Emperor Huang met another woman. One had an extremely powerful background. Moreover, it was a woman who could help him. Heavenly Emperor Huang secretly fell in love with that woman. That woman, on the other hand, came looking for him. Heavenly Emperor Huang didn't know what that woman said to his beloved wife. When he came back, seeing his 2 women appear together, he also felt that it was very troublesome. Actually, given enough time, he might be able to solve this problem. 2 maids and 1 husband. This kind of thing was not uncommon, but it seems his second wife didn't want to share a man with his first wife. Hence, he chose to make a move. I wish you all the best. The woman who loved Heavenly Emperor Huang said. She chose to leave. Heavenly Emperor Huang wanted to give chase. He chased after them. There might be a turnaround. However, concubine was the choice of Celestial Emperor Huang. Of course, at this time, he was still not Celestial Emperor Huang. He was just a young expert with exceptional talent. Heavenly Emperor Huang only had 2 choices. First, he chased after the first wife. From then on, his second wife cut off all ties with him. Second, he allowed the first wife to leave. The forces behind the second wife would fully support Heavenly Emperor Huang. On one side was the person he loved deeply, and the person who loved him deeply. On the other side was a fleeting future, Heavenly Emperor Huang. He chose the latter. He did not chase after her. Later, Heavenly Emperor Huang heard that. The woman he loved deeply was being targeted by a group of vicious devil path cultivators. She was seriously injured and eventually escaped. From then on, there was no news of her. Heavenly Emperor Huang secretly sent people to search for a long time. In the end, he didn't find any news. Heavenly Emperor Huang didn't want to think about that possibility. However, Heavenly Emperor Huang couldn't help but have such a thought in his mind. She was dead. She died in fear, loneliness, sadness, and hatred. When she died, there was no lover by her side. Perhaps she must have felt very sad in her heart. Heavenly Emperor Huang crazily tortured those demonic cultivators who killed her. As Heavenly Emperor Huang gradually became stronger, Heavenly Emperor Huang even eradicated the forces behind those demonic cultivators one by one. This was not the end. Later on, after Heavenly Emperor Huang became a supreme being, he began to suppress the demonic forces. Many demonic forces suffered because of this. It could be said that the era of Heavenly Emperor Huang was the era when the demonic forces were at their weakest. Heavenly Emperor Huang's hatred from back then. He vented it all on those demonic forces. The vast majority of the demonic forces were naturally implicated. They belonged to the innocent people who were implicated. But in the world of cultivators, who would care if you were implicated or not? Where are you? Heavenly Emperor Huang looked at the broken jade in his hand and muttered. He actually shed tears. Perhaps was he thinking of what happened in the past? He thought of his lover in the past. Was he already regretting it in his heart? Lin Feng and the divine beast waited for 3 days. An altar flew up from the bottom of the abyss and floated in the air. Climb the altar. Heavenly Emperor Huang did not appear, but his voice could be heard. Lin Feng and the divine beast ascended the altar. Then, the altar was activated. When the altar was activated, Lin Feng and the divine beast were instantly teleported out. When Lin Feng and the divine beast appeared, they appeared in a dark world. Around them, it was eerie. In the darkness, there seemed to be many gazes looking at Lin Feng and the divine beast. Damn, we're so unlucky. We just came here, and it's already night? Lin Feng immediately wailed. In the world where time was reversed, they followed Heavenly Emperor Huang's words. It's dark. Don't come out. Therefore, the night was definitely incomparably terrifying. Disperse the holy light on your body and hide yourself in the darkness. Lin Feng looked at the divine beast. Being so eye-catching in the darkness was really no different from courting death. The divine beast hurriedly nodded and dispersed the holy light on its body. Something seems to be coming. Lin Feng looked behind him, and his expression suddenly changed. His blood began to flow quickly. This feeling was really terrible. Lin Feng tried to use his divine sense to sense the terrifying existence, but he couldn't sense any of its aura. He didn't know what that terrifying existence was. Lin Feng didn't dare to stay, and quickly ran away. The divine beast, he followed closely behind. But after running for a long time, Lin Feng felt that the unknown and terrifying existence was still chasing after them, and it seemed to be getting closer and closer. End of chapter. Chapter 53:36. What the hell is it? Why is it lingering around? Lin Feng's expression was very solemn. The existence that was chasing after them had an extremely terrifying aura. It made one's hair stand on end. After Lin Feng and the sacred beast were locked onto by that terrifying existence, they couldn't shake it off at all. This wasn't the way to go on, because they might be caught up soon. And there was one more terrifying thing. There was definitely more than one terrifying beast in the darkness. If the other ferocious beasts also attacked, it would definitely be a loss that would make one despair. At that time, there would probably be no road to heaven and no door to the earth. Lin Feng's speed was fast enough. However, compared to the terrifying existence that was chasing after them, it was still a little lacking. Sit on my body. At this time, the sacred beast said. Hearing this, Lin Feng's spirit was slightly lifted. He jumped onto the sacred beast's body. The sacred beast. It began to gallop. At the same time, the sacred beast's wings also stretched out. The speed of the sacred beast. It had greatly increased. Lin Feng's face couldn't help but reveal a look of joy. The sacred beast's wings spread out, and its full-speed running speed was actually faster than his speed. It was really unbelievable. Over the years, Lin Feng had seen creatures that were faster than Lin Feng, but they could be counted on one hand. The sacred beast was one of them. The unknown existence in the darkness couldn't help but become angry. Obviously, it originally looked like it was about to catch up with Lin Feng and the sacred beast. It was very agitated and excited. But in the blink of an eye, Lin Feng and the sacred beast had once again widened the distance between them. That existence, naturally, it was incomparably angry. Now, that existence's eyes were flashing with a dense killing intent. The aura emitted from its body was even more terrifying. After feeling the aura emitted from that terrifying existence's body, Lin Feng's mind couldn't help but tremble slightly. This guy, it was really terrifying. It seemed that he had underestimated this existence before. This unknown creature might be much more terrifying than he had imagined. The unknown existence behind began to speed up. The distance between them, it was approaching again. Damn it, Lin Feng couldn't help but curse in a low voice. The speed of the sacred beast was already as fast as lightning. He still couldn't shake that guy off. The divine beast also began to accelerate. But when the divine beast accelerated, the terrifying existence chasing after them was still accelerating. It didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. That unknown and terrifying existence was too powerful, so its ability to continuously accelerate was very powerful. However, what made Lin Feng feel a little relieved was that the divine beast could also continuously accelerate. For the time being, that unknown and terrifying existence was unable to catch up to Lin Feng and the sacred beast. In this continuous pursuit, that unknown and terrifying existence became extremely angry. It constantly let out a low growl. Lin Feng estimated very few creatures could last that long while being hunted by it. Therefore, after chasing Lin Feng and the divine beast for so long, they still couldn't catch up to them. This terrifying creature felt a deep sense of humiliation. Roar! At this time, a low growl came from all around. Not good. other terrifying creatures have appeared. Lin Feng's face suddenly became extremely ugly. Front, left, right. There were beast roars coming from all three directions. This meant that there should be extremely terrifying creatures rushing over from all three directions. This was an extremely dangerous matter. Once they were surrounded, at that time, it would be difficult to escape. The divine beast couldn't help but worry. The current situation was indeed extremely bad. Roar! But at this time, a low growl came from behind. It was the roar of the terrifying existence that was chasing after Lin Feng and the divine beast first. That terrifying existence seemed to be warning the other creatures. Finally, the creatures in front left, and right all left one after another. It wants to kill us alone. Lin Feng was surprised. Then he revealed a look of joy. The existence that was chasing after them shouldn't have a low status. Otherwise, the other creatures wouldn't have left after hearing its roar. The departure of those creatures gave Lin Feng hope of escaping. But not long after, Lin Feng's face became ugly, because under this continuous consumption, the divine beast couldn't compete with that unknown creature. Although the divine beast's peak speed wasn't inferior to that unknown creature. But in terms of magical power storage, the difference was too big. The main reason was that the gap between their realms was too big. So, after the divine beast showed signs of fatigue, the distance between the two sides began to quickly close. One fled and one chased. The two sides seemed to be only 1,000 meters away. The situation was getting worse. Lin Feng's face couldn't help but become extremely gloomy. He had to think of a solution, or else it was very likely that he would die. Lin Feng was very clear about this. 2 hours later, the two sides were only 500 meters away. Although he still couldn't see what kind of existence the unknown creature in the darkness was. However, at this distance, Lin Feng could already smell the stench emitted from its body. It wouldn't take long for Lin Feng and the divine beast to be caught up by this terrifying existence. But at this extremely dangerous moment, Lin Feng saw that there was a light in the distance, a light in the darkness. It wasn't dazzling, but it was like a light of hope. "It's a village," Lin Feng said in surprise. He remembered the warning of Huangtian Emperor before. At night, they could go to villages, towns, and other places to take refuge. Such a place. It was a place where the terrifying existence in the darkness didn't dare to enter. The divine beast's eyes also became bright. It tried its best. It began to accelerate. The unknown existence behind them obviously became a little flustered and exasperated. It also began to accelerate. It wanted to enter the village before Lin Feng and the divine beast. Catch Lin Feng and the divine beast. Just when they were more than 100 meters away from the village, a gloomy and terrifying aura filled the air. It directly enveloped Lin Feng and the divine beast. At that moment, they felt as if their bodies were being imprisoned. Lin Feng pulled a long face. He wanted to struggle, but he couldn't. But he failed. The stench of blood rushed to his face. The unknown existence in the darkness. It pounced on him and the divine beast. At this moment of life and death, deep in the village, a ball of divine light rose into the sky. Whoosh, in the divine light, an arrow flew out quickly. That arrow shot toward the unknown existence in the darkness that pounced on Lin Feng and the divine beast. End of this chapter. Chapter 53:37. Clang. Along with a violent collision sound, the unknown existence in the darkness collided with the arrow that was shot at it. Although the entity in the darkness wasn't injured, it was still sent flying by the arrow. Lin Feng was shocked. The person who had attacked was truly terrifying. To be able to send that terrifying entity flying with a single arrow, It was hard to imagine what level of cultivation the person who had attacked was. Lin Feng and the divine beast couldn't help but look happy, because they were finally out of danger. The unknown entity in the darkness let out a low roar. It was extremely unwilling. It was about to eat Lin Feng and the divine beast. But at this critical moment, it had failed at the last moment. However, the unknown entity didn't dare to stay any longer. It quickly fled into the distance. The expert who had attacked before didn't attack the unknown entity again. "Come here quickly." At that moment, a voice came from the village. Lin Feng saw a 17-year-old female cultivator wearing a red dress. She was waving at Lin Feng and the divine beast. Lin Feng and the divine beast didn't dare to hesitate and quickly rushed towards the village. By the time Lin Feng and the divine beast reached the village, the divine light floating above the village had already disappeared. Apart from the red-dressed female cultivator, there were a dozen other cultivators present. They seemed to be in the same group as the red-dressed female cultivator. "I'm Lin Feng, and this is my friend, the divine beast. How should I address you?" Lin Feng cupped his fists and said, "I'm Hongyu. Why did you run into the darkness at night? Don't you know that it's very dangerous?" Hongyu asked. Lin Feng smiled wryly. "We just entered the time reversal world, and then we realized it was night time." Hongyu said, "Then you're really unlucky. But even though you're a little unlucky, you're lucky that the Holy Maiden just happened to pass by and saved you. Otherwise, you'd all be dead." When Hongyu mentioned the saintess, she had a very respectful expression. It seemed that the saintess was an extraordinary person. Lin Feng asked, "The one in the divine light was the saintess, right?" Hongyu nodded and said, "Yes, that was the saintess." "Who is the saintess?" Lin Feng asked. "The saintess is—" Hongyu was about to explain, but she suddenly changed the topic and said, "Oh, this isn't a good place to talk. Who knows if there's some terrifying existence that's taking the risk to attack us. Let's go to the village." "No problem," Lin Feng said. On the road, Hongyu introduced Lin Feng and the holy beast to the cultivators around her. They were from an adventuring group. In fact, he wanted to live well in this world where time was reversed. "Your strength is extremely heaven-defying, or else you won't be killed by those terrifying native creatures, or they would be killed by other adventurer groups." Hongyu was the leader of this group. Moreover, Hongyu was the strongest among them. She was a 7th-layer golden immortal cultivator. The rest of the people were basically all true immortal realm powerhouses. Lin Feng knew that there were many experts in this time-reversed world. After all, experts from all over the universe, including the Outland world, the Wasteland world, the Celestial world, the Primal Chaos, Xianhuang world, the Underworld, the Western universe, and other places would all come here in search of opportunities to improve themselves. Many people would just stay here and not leave. Therefore, there were more and more experts in this time-reversed world. However, when he saw that even an ordinary adventurer group had so many experts, Lin Feng was still extremely shocked. After some discussion, Lin Feng found out that Hongyu came from the Mystic Moon Great World, one of the 3,000 great worlds. It was a great world near the moon. It was relatively far from the undying world. As for the others, they had all come from different places. Hongyu had already stayed in this time-reversed world for 70,000 years. Her experience could be considered extremely rich. She also had a certain understanding of many experts in the time-reversed world. As for Lin Feng and the Holy Beast, in Hongyu's opinion, they were all rookies. No experience, no strength, no connections. This kind of person was what the cultivators in the time-reversed world called the three nobodies. Generally speaking, the three nobodies were cultivators who had just entered the time-reversed world. Some of the larger adventure groups couldn't be bothered to pay attention to these people because, in their opinion, these cultivators who had just entered the time-reversed world, even if their cultivation was not bad, it was still limited. Those large adventure groups would often recruit cultivators who had been in the time-reversed world for many years and were very experienced. Hong Yu, and the others were very enthusiastic. Naturally, it was because they wanted to recruit Lin Feng and the Holy Beast into their group. They were just a small adventure group. The strongest among them was only a golden immortal. This level, in the outside world, they were existences that could do whatever they wanted. But in the time-reversed world, they weren't particularly powerful. Therefore, it was very difficult for a small group like Hong Yu to recruit people. Thus, Hong Yu stared at Lin Feng, a cultivator who had just entered the time-reversed world. TSK Tisk, there's a newcomer. After entering the village, the number of people began to increase. Many people walked out and stood on both sides of the street. They looked at Lin Feng and the Holy Beast with malicious eyes. Newcomers must know the rules. I don't think I need to say more about the rules, right? At this time, a group of more than 20 people walked over. The leader, a thin cultivator, said, "I'm new here, so I really don't know what the rules are." Lin Feng replied indifferently. Actually, how could Lin Feng not know the so-called rules here? It should be referring to giving some good things to these people. Then, losing money to avoid disaster. But Lin Feng didn't want to be bullied as soon as he arrived here. "Kid, you're quite arrogant. Huh? Are you looking for a beating? Do you believe that I won't beat you up right now?" The thin cultivator's eyes suddenly darkened. "A newcomer dares to talk so much. If I don't beat him half to death, this guy will definitely not learn his lesson. Haha, beat him hard, we're waiting to see." Many of the surrounding cultivators began to jeer. "Hee, since everyone is looking forward to this performance so much, we can't let the brothers down, right? Tell me, should we slap this kid's left face first or his right face first?" The thin cultivator said with a smile. He didn't put Lin Feng, a cultivator who had just entered the time-reversed world, in his eyes at all. Moreover, Lin Feng was still so young. Therefore, in the thin cultivator's opinion, he could humiliate Lin Feng however he wanted to humiliate Lin Feng. End of chapter. Chapter 53:38. Lin Feng sneered in his heart. These people were really self-righteous. If they really fought, who would be afraid of who? They weren't even at the Saint Immortal realm, yet they dared to act cool in front of him. What a joke! Slap the left face first. Slap the right face first. The surrounding cultivators started to jeer. Some wanted the skinny cultivator to slap Lin Feng's left face first, while others wanted the skinny cultivator to slap Lin Feng's right face first. There were all kinds of opinions. "Then let's slap this kid's left face first," the skinny cultivator said with a smile. He looked at Lin Feng with a mocking expression. It was as if he was playing a monkey. Just as the skinny cultivator was about to make a move, Hong Yu said, "Zhou Ziqing, don't go too far. Don't forget that the Saintess is still here." Hearing Hong Yu mention the Saintess, Zhou Ziqing's face couldn't help but reveal a serious expression. Saintess. She was an existence he didn't dare to provoke. If he disturbed the Saintess, naturally, he wouldn't have a good ending. Moreover, the Saintess had never liked to see cultivators fight. If the Saintess wasn't here, there wouldn't be a problem to make a move. But the Saintess was here. Then he couldn't make a move. There were some things that still needed to be careful. Humph, Zhou Ziqing couldn't help but snort coldly. His expression was somewhat ugly. Obviously, Zhou Ziqing was quite depressed that he couldn't make a move. Zhou Ziqing looked at Lin Feng and sneered. "Kid, you're lucky this time, but don't let me see you again. Otherwise, I'll teach you a lesson." "I'll be waiting," Lin Feng said with a smile. Hong Yu couldn't help but smile bitterly. It was true that a newborn calf wasn't afraid of a tiger. At this time, he actually dared to provoke Zhou Ziqing. Perhaps it was because he didn't understand what kind of world the time reversal world was like. He also didn't understand the cruel rules of survival here. So that was why he dared to provoke Zhou Ziqing. If he knew how terrifying Zhou Ziqing was, he would probably regret it. Hong Yu was even considering whether to continue absorbing Lin Feng. She felt that with Lin Feng's character, he would definitely attract a lot of trouble. However, Hong Yu quickly made her decision. It wasn't easy to recruit new members, not to mention that Lin Feng and the sacred beast were in cahoots. If they missed out on Lin Feng and the sacred beast, they didn't know when they would have another opportunity to recruit new members. At worst, he could talk to Lin Feng about how to survive in this place. Presumably, Lin Feng was a smart person. When the time comes, you know what you will do. Good. Brat. I'll remember you. Zhou Ziqing's eyes flashed with killing intent. Let's leave quickly. Hong Yu pulled Lin Feng and said. Lin Feng knew what Hong Yu was worried about. Therefore, he didn't continue to say anything to Zhou Ziqing. If this guy really dared to come looking for trouble when the time comes, send him to hell. Lin Feng wasn't a good-tempered person. Hong Yu and the others lived in an independent courtyard. After arriving at the living room, everyone sat down. When Hong Yu and the others saw that Lin Feng had offended an expert like Zhou Ziqing, they actually didn't care. They couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Hong Yu said, "Little brother Lin, you know, that Zhou Ziqing is an extremely powerful person. Not many people dare to provoke him." "Extremely powerful? How powerful?" Lin Feng asked. "Peak of the golden immortal realm." Hong Yu said with a serious expression. "A mere peak of the golden immortal realm is nothing," Lin Feng said. After hearing Lin Feng's words, the group of people rolled their eyes, because they could feel it. Lin Feng, he wasn't even a true immortal. Now, he actually said that a peak golden immortal realm cultivator was nothing. Wasn't this too pretentious? "Why are you all looking at me like that?" Lin Feng couldn't help but say. Cough, cough. Hong Yu dryly coughed twice before saying, "Little brother Lin, let's not offend that fellow Zhou Ziqing if we can. It's best not to offend him as much as possible, because he has a relatively powerful adventurer group behind him. He's only the second in command of that adventurer group, and the first in command of that adventurer group is a Saint Immortal expert." Lin Feng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. A Saint Immortal realm expert. For Lin Feng, an existence that couldn't be ignored. Lin Feng was confident that he could defeat a golden immortal, but against a Saint Immortal realm expert, then he had no confidence at all. After all, a Saint Immortal realm expert was indeed many times stronger than a golden immortal realm expert. Of course, if it was said that Lin Feng was afraid of a Saint Immortal realm expert, it wasn't a problem. With Lin Feng's current cultivation, even if he couldn't defeat a Saint Immortal realm expert, it was very difficult for a Saint Immortal realm expert to pose a threat to Lin Feng's life. What Lin Feng was truly afraid of were those quasi-saints or true saints. Of course, if the other party was an extremely heaven-defying monster, an existence that could cross a large realm to fight against an opponent who had broken through to the Golden Immortal Realm or the Saint Immortal Realm, would still pose a great threat to Lin Feng. However, Such a monster was rare. How could it be so easy to meet such a monster? Lin Feng knew that it wasn't easy for Hong Yu, and the others to survive. Hong Yu, and the others gave Lin Feng a rather good impression. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't say anything to provoke Hong Yu, and the others. He said, "As long as that guy doesn't provoke me, I can't be bothered to deal with him." Hong Yu, and the others couldn't help but laugh bitterly again. This was because Lin Feng was unknowingly acting cool again. Lin Feng asked, "Fairy, can you tell us about this saint lady now?" Hong Yu, said, "Before we talk about the saint lady, let's talk about the specific division of power in the time reversal world. This way, you can better understand the time reversal world." Lin Feng said, "Okay." Hong Yu, then said, "The time reversal world is divided into 5 regions: the eastern region, the western region, the southern region, the northern region, and the central region. Each of these 5 regions is vast and boundless. Moreover, there are extremely terrifying space-time storms where the 5 regions intersect. Those space-time storms can even kill Saint Realm experts. Therefore, it's very difficult to travel between the 5 regions. Perhaps only some extremely powerful cultivators can travel between the 5 regions. The region we're in now is the edge of the eastern region. Relatively speaking, this is a remote region. It's not as terrifying as the central region and the inner region." Hearing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh bitterly. This was because Lin Feng thought of the unknown existence that had chased after them. This was still the outer region, a remote region. Such a powerful existence had actually appeared. If it was a creature from the core region, how terrifying would it be? Sogu's reading website. Chapter 5339. Each region is divided into many different groups, and each of them has a large number of experts. There are saints in the top forces, said Yi Fuqian. For example, in the eastern region where we are right now, there are 4 top powers. They are the Pavilion of Eyes, Fuqian Grotto, Saintly Heaven Tower, and Peerless Cliff. The holy maiden we met before is the daughter of the leader of Saintly Heaven Tower. Hong Yu, continued. Lin Feng asked, "That holy maiden is very strong. What's her cultivation level?" Hong Yu, replied, "It's said that she's a quasi-saint, but she's a proud daughter of the heavens. She's very strong. Although she hasn't become a saint, many saints aren't necessarily her match." Lin Feng naturally agreed with this. The holy maiden was indeed very strong. "What's her name?" Lin Feng asked curiously. "She's called Xia Tingyu." Hong Yu replied. "Yes." Lin Feng nodded, then asked, "The relationships between the top groups aren't very good, right?" Hong Yu replied, "The internal strife is very fierce, but when facing outsiders, they're quite united. For example, when there's a regional war, they'll be very united." "What's a regional war?" Lin Feng couldn't help but ask. "Every few years, there will be a change in the 5 regions, and a battlefield will appear. The 5 regions will send some experts to the battlefield to participate in the regional war. The regional war can be used to hone one's cultivation level, and it can also be used to collect the legendary teleportation stones." Hong Yu explained. Lin Feng asked, "What's this teleportation stone you're talking about?" Hong Yu explained, "The teleportation stone can be used to create a teleportation formation. It's said that it can lead to the location of the divine court." Hearing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but gasp. The divine court, the door of everlasting life, the heaven-shaking steel, they all hid great secrets. Peerless experts wanted to enter them. However, they wanted to enter these places. In the outside world, countless cultivators wanted to find the door of everlasting life, the divine court, and the heaven-shaking steel, but they didn't find anything. But things were different here. There really was a supreme divine court in the world where time was reversed. The reason why cultivators in the outside world couldn't find the supreme divine court was because the supreme divine court was in a world where time had reversed. Lin Feng immediately became very interested in those so-called teleportation stones. When the time came, he had to find a way to participate in the regional battle. Then he would collect as many teleportation stones as he could. Then he would construct a teleportation array so that he could head to the Supreme Divine Court. Thinking of this, Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. Hongyu was a smart woman. When she saw the smile on Lin Feng's face, she immediately understood what he meant. Hongyu said, "I know what you're thinking, but don't even think about the regional battles. Only the apex experts are qualified to go there. Ordinary Saint Immortals are not qualified to go there. At the very least, only high-level Saint Immortals are qualified to go there." Lin Feng smiled and did not refute. Then Lin Feng asked, "Since this place is the outer region of the eastern region, someone with an extraordinary status like the Holy Maiden shouldn't have come here. Why would she come here?" Hongyu shook her head. "I'm not sure, but I have a feeling that something big is about to happen. Otherwise, the Holy Maiden wouldn't have come to such a remote place." Lin Feng had the same feeling, but Lin Feng didn't know what exactly was going to happen. "Now, on behalf of our adventurer team, I formally invite you to join our adventurer team. Are you willing to join us?" Hongyu asked. Lin Feng had just arrived, so there were many things he didn't know. Moreover, his strength was nothing in this world where time had reversed. Spending some time with Hongyu and the others wasn't bad. Especially, Hongyu was also a beautiful woman with a hot figure and a beautiful face. Looking at such a beauty every day, it was also a kind of pleasure. Lin Feng nodded. "Of course we're willing." The holy beast followed Lin Feng's lead. Lin Feng agreed. It didn't have any objections. Seeing Lin Feng agree, Hongyu was obviously very happy. She said, "Then you can rest first. We won't disturb you any longer." "Okay." Lin Feng nodded. A cultivator called Song Xinhai brought Lin Feng and the holy beast to rest. Previously, they had escaped. Lin Feng and the holy beast had used up a lot of energy. Thus, they really did need to rest. In the night, the roars of beasts could be heard from time to time. The creatures in the darkness were fighting each other. However, in the darkness outside the village, pairs of terrifying eyes were staring at the village. There were terrifying creatures in the darkness that had designs on the village, but they were afraid and didn't make a move. The next day, Lin Feng woke up feeling refreshed. After washing up, he left his room. Everyone had already gathered in the courtyard, including the sacred beasts. "Morning." Lin Feng smiled and greeted everyone. "Morning." Hongyu and the others also said, "Today, we will set off for the 10,000 Demon Lake. Before we set off, we need to buy some special things." Hongyu said, 10,000 Demon Lake, what kind of place is that?" Lin Feng asked curiously. Hongyu said, "It's a place with rich resources. It's about 5 days' journey from here. This time, we are going to the 10,000 Demon Lake to collect the Heavenly Lake Night Heart Grass." Hongyu said, "What is the Heavenly Lake Night Heart Grass?" Lin Feng continued to ask, "This is a good thing. The Heavenly Lake Night Heart Grass is a spirit herb of heaven and earth. After refining it, it can greatly increase the cultivation of a cultivator." Hongyu said. Hearing this, Lin Feng's face couldn't help but reveal a look of joy. Heavenly and earthly treasures that could greatly increase a cultivator's cultivation were relatively rare. Once such a heavenly and earthly treasure appeared, it would definitely be snatched by many people. Lin Feng said, "Then let's hurry up and set off." Hongyu said, Looks like you're in a hurry to raise your cultivation. Let's go. We'll immediately go buy some necessities and then head to the 10,000 Demon Lake to try our luck. Let's see if we can find the Heavenly Lake Nightheart grass. Following which, the group left their residence. They arrived at the trading market in the village. The item that Hong Yu and the others wanted to buy was called exorcist incense, because they were going to spend the night outside. It was extremely dangerous outside. If one brought the exorcist incense, under normal circumstances, the terrifying creatures that smelled it would take the initiative to leave. This way, they wouldn't be attacked by those terrifying creatures at night. End of chapter. Chapter 5340. On the way, Lin Feng understood how extraordinary the exorcist incense was. He said, since the exorcist incense can drive away the terrifying creatures outside, then the night shouldn't be as scary as we imagined, right? Hong Yu smiled bitterly and said, we are only in the outer region. If we are in the outer region, the exorcist incense will still be effective. If we go further in, the exorcist incense will lose its effect. So that's how it is. Lin Feng couldn't help but nod. Not long after, Lin Feng and the others arrived at the place where the exorcist incense was sold. A stick of exorcist incense was worth about 100,000 high-grade immortal stones. Moreover, in the reverse time world, the immortal stones that circulated were at least high-grade immortal stones. For example, low-grade immortal stones and middle-grade immortal stones couldn't be used as currency. If 100,000 high-grade immortal stones were to be converted to low-grade immortal stones, it would be 1 billion low-grade immortal stones. Just one stick of incense. It was actually sold for 1 billion. It was ridiculously expensive. However, you had to buy it even if you didn't want to. If you didn't buy it, you wouldn't even be able to leave the village. Our area is under the jurisdiction of the Sacred Heaven Immortal Tower. The people selling exorcist incense are also from the Sacred Heaven Immortal Tower. Hong Yu looked at Lin Feng and said. Lin Feng nodded. This was a profiteering industry, so it would naturally be monopolized by these top forces. Even if the other forces knew how to make exorcist incense, they wouldn't dare to sell it easily. Offending the Sacred Heaven Immortal Tower wouldn't end well. Moreover, they might not be able to make exorcist incense like the Sacred Heaven Immortal Tower. There were many people who bought exorcist incense. Lin Feng and the others lined up outside. Hong Yu was calculating how many exorcist incense to buy. It was difficult to survive in the reversed time world, and the prices were extremely high. Therefore, they didn't have a lot of immortal stones on them. After Hong Yu calculated for a while, she finally decided to buy 5 exorcist incense. Their group's financial resources couldn't allow them to buy too many exorcist incense. This was a practical problem. In addition, Hong Yu estimated the time they could stay outside. The exorcist incense naturally wouldn't burn out so quickly. It could usually last for a few days. Hong Yu estimated that 4 incense sticks would be enough, but she bought an extra one just to be safe. After purchasing 5 incense sticks, Hong Yu distributed the incense sticks to everyone. Even if the exorcism incense was broken, it wouldn't affect its usage either. The 5 incense sticks were broken into 18 pieces by Hong Yu. Everyone in the team took a section each. The reason why they did this was because they were worried that if one person was killed by an unknown creature in the darkness, everyone would die if they couldn't retrieve the incense in time. He broke the incense into 12 pieces, one for each person. If anyone died, he could guarantee that the others would also have a portion of the incense. Of course, there was another reason. If anyone gets separated from the team, for some reason, then he had exorcism incense on him. Then he might be able to survive. Then he would look for a team or look for other adventurer teams to help. If he didn't have the exorcism incense in his hands, he would definitely die. The group didn't stay any longer. They headed outside. Many cultivators left the village. Lin Feng asked, "Why don't those terrifying creatures attack the village?" Hong Yu said, "It's said that those villages, towns, and other places have been blessed by mysterious experts. As long as a place is blessed, it won't be attacked by those terrifying creatures." Of course, this isn't absolute. In fact, in the world where time has reversed, there are some extremely powerful creatures that dare to attack those villages and towns. Moreover, as far as I know, there have been some ambitious creatures in history who have even joined forces with other creatures to attack towns and villages. Something like this hasn't happened in our eastern region, but it has happened in other regions. This kind of war is incomparably terrifying, and the impact is too great. Countless people participate in the war, and when the time comes, who knows how many people and terrifying creatures will die in the war. Lin Feng said, "The world is bustling with activity, and everyone is here for profit. I think that the reason why there are wars in other regions is because there are some things in those towns and villages that attract the attention of those terrifying creatures. Thus, a war breaks out. If something like that appears in the eastern region, the top creatures in the eastern region will probably start a war as well." After hearing Lin Feng's words, Hong Yu couldn't help but ponder. She nodded and said, "That's right. What you said is very reasonable. To put it bluntly, this world still values benefits. As long as there are benefits, anything can happen." On the way, Lin Feng and Hong Yu chatted for a long time. He learned a lot from Hong Yu. Lin Feng thought about his father, Lin Beitian. Back then, he had also entered the world where time had reversed. The reason his father had been able to grow so quickly was because he had obtained a great opportunity in that world. Because of that, he had become a fish that leaped over the dragon gate and soared into the sky. He didn't know Hong Yu. Had she heard of his father, Lin Beitian? Lin Feng had wanted to learn more about his father from Heavenly Emperor Huang, but unfortunately, Heavenly Emperor Huang didn't know much. Moreover, there were some things that Heavenly Emperor Huang didn't want to tell him. Lin Feng and Hong Yu were already quite familiar with each other. So if he wanted to ask something, Lin Feng would ask directly. Lin Feng said, "I want to ask you about someone. I don't know if you've heard of him." "Who is it?" Hong Yu asked curiously. Lin Feng said, "That person is called Lin Beitian." Hong Yu thought about it carefully and said, "I've never heard of this person." Some people are more low-key, so even if their cultivation is very high, others might not know of their existence. Lin Feng nodded and didn't ask any more questions. The first night had arrived. Lin Feng and the others were in a grassy area, so they couldn't find any hidden caves or other places to hide. They could only spend the night in the grassy area. Hong Yu lit up an exorcist incense stick. The exorcist incense stick emitted a strange smell. This smell was like the smell of rotting corpses magnified 100 times. It was simply too unpleasant. No wonder those terrifying creatures had been driven away. This smell was simply too disgusting. Seeing Lin Feng's hopeless expression, Hong Yu smiled and said, "The first time you smell this smell, you're not used to it. But after a while, you'll get used to it." End of chapter. Chapter 53:41. Lin Feng smiled bitterly and nodded. He would probably have to smell this smell a lot in the coming days. This kind of smell was really driving people crazy. However, in order to avoid those terrifying creatures, he could only endure it for the time being. Late at night, the howls of wolves resounded. Lin Feng and the others were all awakened. Their expressions became serious. Grassland wolves were generally social creatures. The grassland wolves of the time, reversal world, were not something that the grassland wolves of the outside world could compare to. The grassland wolves of the time, reversal world, were incomparably terrifying and ferocious due to their large numbers. So, once a cultivator was surrounded by a terrifying existence like the grassland wolves, it would be a disaster. Although the exorcism incense could dispel many existences in the darkness. However, there were too many grassland wolves. When they ran together, they were fearless. Prairie wolves are a special kind of wolf pack. Although they live in packs, they don't like to move together. But now, so many of them are making noises together. This means that they have gathered together. Why are those guys gathering together? Hongyu said with a serious expression. Lin Feng said, something might have happened on the grassland. Hongyu nodded and said, that is indeed a possibility. We can't stay here any longer. We have to leave the grassland as soon as possible. Otherwise, if we encounter the grassland wolves, the situation will be extremely bad. The group did not dare to stay any longer and quickly flew into the distance. In fact, moving at night, even holding a lit exorcism incense would not be safe. This was because after the exorcism incense was lit, the smoke and smell would slowly spread out in all directions. Then, it formed a protective circle that covered more than 10 miles. The people who lit the exorcism incense would stay in the protective circle, and the smell of the exorcism incense would cover their body's smell. As a result, the terrifying creatures in the outer area would not be able to smell the cultivators inside. In addition, the smell of the exorcism incense was too unpleasant. Those terrifying creatures would choose to leave, holding the exorcism incense and quickly moving through the grassland. It was naturally impossible to form such a protective circle. However, Lin Feng and the others had to take action now, or else it would be very dangerous. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The ground shook violently. It was as if there were thousands of soldiers and horses galloping. A pack of wolves. It must be a pack of wolves. That's the only thing that can happen in the grassland. Hongyu said. Lin Feng and the others were not the only cultivators flying at high speed in the dark night. Many other cultivators were alarmed and quickly flew into the distance. He hoped to leave the grassland as soon as possible. Soon after, Lin Feng saw the pack of wolves behind them. They were densely packed and innumerable. Seeing so many wolves rushing towards them, Zhang Xian was shocked. Lin Feng's expression became extremely unsightly. The number of wolves was really too great. It was absolutely hair-raising. It's over! It's over! The cultivators from the other adventure teams cried out in horror. In the dark night, from time to time, miserable screams could be heard. The slower cultivators were immediately drowned by the wolf pack. Even though those cultivators were very strong, they were still very strong. However, the wolf pack was also very powerful. In addition, there were too many wolves. Therefore, once the wolves caught up, it was no different from courting death. Such a situation. It was too dangerous. Many cultivators couldn't help but curse. Soon, the cultivators who were cursing also stopped. It was better to save some energy and escape. The wolf pack was getting closer and closer. Many cultivators cried out in fear. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Why would we encounter a pack of wolves? The heavens are unfair to us to actually let us encounter such a terrifying thing. Damn heavens, you are deliberately trapping us. If you have life, we curse you to die a horrible death. Seeing that they couldn't escape, many people no longer cared and began to curse again. Naturally, they would curse whatever was unpleasant to hear. Then, those cultivators were also drowned by the wolves. Hongyu and the others' faces became extremely pale, because many people on their side couldn't hold on any longer. This kind of full-speed escape consumed too much of his energy. If they could survive, no one wanted to die. At this moment, Lin Feng waved his hand, and a powerful mana wrapped around everyone. He quickly flew forward. Lin Feng and the others once again pulled away from the wolf pack behind them. Damn, little brother Lin, your speed is so fast, a cultivator said in shock, his face filled with incomparable joy. Originally, many people thought that they were dead for sure, but now they revealed expressions of having survived a calamity. Another cultivator said, Brother Lin, could it be that you have the Great Rock's bloodline? Otherwise, how could you be so fast? Lin Feng said, I am a pure human cultivator. I do not have the Great Rock's bloodline. Of course, my speed is so fast because my ability is strong. The group of people laughed bitterly. Whenever he had the chance, this brother Lin would definitely try his best to show off. Of course, Lin Feng did seem to be extraordinary, not to mention anything else. Lin Feng's speed was indeed beyond everyone's reach. Oh! The wolf pack let out a cry of fear. The wolf pack's cry attracted the attention of Lin Feng and the others. Lin Feng looked behind him. He said, I feel that something is wrong. The wolf pack doesn't seem to be out to hunt, but to escape. That seems to be the case. Hong Yu nodded. Lin Feng's expression became serious. If that was the case, then it would be terrifying, because the existence chasing after the wolf pack would be even more terrifying. However, Lin Feng did not know what was chasing after the wolf pack for the time being. Lin Feng and the others continued to run. Soon, Lin Feng discovered that the number of wolves behind them was decreasing. Lin Feng was astonished by this discovery. The wolf pack was being devoured by an unknown existence. The wolf pack became even more chaotic. However, the wolf pack could not change the current situation. About 2 hours later, more than 80% of the wolf pack had been eaten, and only a small portion of the wolf pack was still alive. At this moment, Lin Feng saw a black fog rolling behind the wolf pack. Within the black fog, there was a black creature. That living being was enormous in size. It was 20 meters long and 15 to 16 meters tall. It had a qilin-like body and a head that looked like a dragon or a sheep. When it opened its bloody mouth, it could instantly devour hundreds of powerful grassland wolves. Tao Tai. It's the legendary Tao Tai. After seeing that terrifying existence, Hong Yu cried out in fear. Sogu. Chapter 53-42. Tao Tai was a dragon son. Gluttony. Ferocity. This was a vicious beast, because Tao Tai could devour all kinds of things. So, after devouring those things, Tao Chia's strength could rapidly increase. This was also the reason why Tao Tai was stronger than the other dragon sons. In the outside world, Tao Tai was one of the top beasts. What's more, in the world where time had reversed. In the world where time had reversed, Tao Tai could constantly eat. Moreover, Tao Chia's food was basically all powerful cultivators or powerful indigenous creatures. Thus, Tao Tai in the world where time had reversed, it could definitely be described as heaven-defying. Can you speed up a little more? Don't let Tao Tai catch up, or else we'll become Tao Chia's food. Hong Yu said with a pale face. It seemed that she had heard of the ferocious power of the Tao Tai behind them. At this moment, Hong Yu was so scared that her pretty face was pale. The rest of the people saw the mighty Tao Tai. They were also incomparably terrified. This Tao Tai was indeed too tyrannical, and this guy could eat too much, right? The pack of wolves was densely packed and countless, and they were about to be eaten up by it. How much did this Tao Tai want to eat? Lin Feng flew in another direction. Tao Tai chased after the pack of wolves. so it did not pay attention to Lin Feng and the others. This allowed Lin Feng and the others to let out a sigh of relief. Looks like that Tao Tai is about to evolve. At this time, the demon lord's voice resounded in Lin Feng's mind. Lin Feng sent a sound transmission. What level is it going to evolve to? I think it's the Sage Realm. The demon lord said. That guy is so terrifying, yet he still hasn't broken through to the Sage Realm. Lin Feng couldn't help but be shocked. The demon lord said, Tao Tie's talent is too terrifying. Although its realm hasn't increased, its fighting strength has. It's not inferior to many Sage Realm cultivators. It was indeed the same as what the demon lord had said. If Tao Tai was already so powerful before breaking through to the Sage Realm, what would happen if it broke through to the Sage Realm? An existence that could kill it. There were probably very few of them. Lin Feng and the others continued on their way. The grassland was still not safe. They wanted to leave the grassland as soon as possible. Fortunately, Lin Feng and the others didn't encounter any more danger during the rest of the journey. They successfully left the vast grassland area and entered the primitive forest. Let's go through the forest, and we'll reach the lake of 10,000 beasts. Hongyu said. Lin Feng nodded. The primitive forest was lush with branches. Even the sun couldn't shine through. Many terrifying creatures liked to stay in such places. Even if it was daytime, they still had to be careful when they entered the primitive jungle. On the way, Lin Feng and the others saw many cultivators walking through the primitive forest. Lin Feng reckoned that those cultivators were also heading towards the Myriad Demon Lake, a heavenly treasure like the heavenly lake Night Heartgrass was born. Any cultivator, they would all covet such heavenly treasures. Therefore, a large number of cultivators would go to the Myriad Demon's Lake. Along the way, Lin Feng learned a lot of things about the Myriad Demon's Lake from Hongyu. For example, the Myriad Demon's Lake was very huge. In the depths of the Myriad Demon's Lake lived the Myriad Demon's King. It was said that the Myriad Demon's King was an old demon king. However, even if he was old, he was still an existence that no one dared to provoke. There were many treasures in the Myriad Demon's Lake. The deeper one went, the more treasures there were. However, the deeper one went, the more dangerous it was. In the depths of the Myriad Demon's Lake, there were many terrifying creatures. Those creatures were very ancient. Normally, they wouldn't leave the Myriad Demon's Lake easily. However, if someone were to enter the Myriad Demon's Lake, they would very likely be attacked by those terrifying creatures. Even so, there were still many people who entered the Myriad Demon's Lake every year, who asked the Myriad Demon's Lake to be rich in resources. There were huge benefits to be gained there. In this world, there were always some people who thought that they were lucky or that they were strong and confident, so they took the risk and went forward. In the end, they died. Of course, there were indeed some people who succeeded in taking the risk, and then they received unimaginable benefits. They even soared into the sky. However, there were still too few of them. The primitive forest was very dangerous at night, because at night, many terrifying creatures would appear. At night, Lin Feng and the others hid in the cave and lit the exorcism incense. This way, they were slightly relieved. The next day, Lin Feng and the others encountered a huge problem when they passed through a mountain range, because they saw the Tao Tai in the mountain range. At that time, the Tao Tai was lying in a valley resting. When Lin Feng and the others went over, they saw the resting Tao Tai. They were almost scared to death. They tried their best not to make any noise. Originally, Lin Feng and the others wanted to leave quietly. However, things didn't go as they wished. The Tao Tai opened his eyes, a playful gaze. He looked at Lin Feng and the others. Perhaps in the eyes of the Tao Tai, Lin Feng and the others were just a bunch of ants. "Let's go," Lin Feng shouted in a deep voice. He used his powerful mana to wrap everyone up. Then he rushed into the distance. The Tao Tai directly leaped up. That huge body galloped in the air. The Tao Tai quickly chased after Lin Feng and the others who were escaping in front. *CKU, damn you all! Why did you let us meet this Tao Tai again? Someone cursed with an ugly expression. This Tao Tai's aura was too terrifying. Of course, its strength was so terrifying that it was impossible to resist. Now, many people were worried that they couldn't escape. The Tao Tai quickly chased after them. It was too difficult to get rid of it. When Lin Feng's speed slowed down, it was the divine beast's turn to make a move. A ball of holy light gushed out from the divine beast's body, wrapping Lin Feng and the others in the holy light. Then, the divine beast quickly ran. However, when the Tao Tai chased after them at full speed, even the divine beast's speed couldn't be faster than this Tao Tai. The main reason was that this Tao Tai was too powerful. Moreover, Lin Feng felt that the energy accumulated in this Tao Tai's body was very terrifying. Lin Feng thought of the words that the demon lord had told him before. This Tao Tai was about to evolve. In order to succeed, it would have to constantly devour powerful creatures. Then it would refine those creatures and use them to stabilize itself. Now, it seemed that this Tao Tai still needed some time before it could break through. The main reason was that it needed too much energy to break through. Therefore, this Tao Tai needed to devour more powerful creatures to replenish its energy. Now, Lin Feng and the others had become this Tao Tai's new target. End of chapter. Chapter 53-43. Both sides were fleeing and chasing. The distance between them was constantly shrinking. The situation seemed to be getting worse and worse for Lin Feng and the others. "Lowly ants, don't run. You won't be able to escape." Tao Tai said coldly, "We're not even enough to fill the gaps between your teeth. Since you're so powerful, you might as well go find those powerful native creatures. Those native creatures will definitely fill you up." Lin Feng shouted loudly. Tao Tai said sarcastically, "I like to play with you cultivators, just like a cat playing with a mouse." *CK. After hearing Tao Tai's words, Lin Feng couldn't help but curse. This guy, he really wasn't a good guy. In the process of chasing, many cultivators who had entered the primeval forest saw this Tao Tai. "Oh my God, hurry up and run." Many cultivators cried out in fear as they fled in all directions. Tao Tai was such a terrifying existence. They didn't dare to provoke him. "You won't be able to escape." Tao Tai sneered as he opened his mouth and sucked in. Many cultivators' bodies flew towards Tao Tai uncontrollably. Then, they were directly swallowed by Tao Tai. Some of the stronger cultivators were lucky enough to escape with their lives. What made Lin Feng extremely depressed was that Tao Tai was still chasing them, not chasing after the others. Lin Feng was speechless. He said, "Why are you always chasing after us? Go and chase after others." Tao Tai said, "My character is to finish what I started. Since I chased you guys first, I will definitely catch you guys. Then I will eat you." Hearing Tao Tai's words, Lin Feng and the others couldn't help but burst into tears. What kind of bullshit personality was this? This was too much of a scam. 2 hours later. The distance between the two sides was already very close, less than 1,000 meters. Heaven-shaking earth wave. Tao Tai sneered. Tao Tai leaped out and slapped the ground with his claws. The power of this claw was not to be underestimated. When this claw slapped the ground more than 1,000 meters away suddenly split open. Then, terrifying waves surged out from the cracked earth. Those waves surged towards Lin Feng and the others. Bang! Along with the sound of violent collisions. Those waves. It fiercely slammed into the holy light barrier protecting Lin Feng and the others. Lin Feng and the others were sent flying. Many people even vomited blood from the shock. Then, he fell into the forest. Lin Feng's body crashed into a large tree that required dozens of people to wrap their arms around it. That heavy impact caused the entire tree to fall down. The Taotai rushed over, its ferocious might overflowing into the sky, shocking everyone. The strength of this existence was truly shocking. Only by sensing its aura up close could one know how powerful it was. Perhaps it was even more terrifying than he had imagined. Taotai took the lead to attack Red Moon, who was closest to him. The faces of Lin Feng and the others abruptly changed. It was already too late to save Hongyu. Of course. Even if they could make it in time. Who could save Hongyu from the Taotia's sharp claws? Hongyu was so scared that her face turned pale. Her expression was one of despair. Just at this critical juncture, suddenly, a silver crescent-shaped magic treasure flew out from the void and slashed towards the Taotai. The magic treasure's power was incomparably tyrannical. The Taotai did not dare to be careless. It waved its huge claws towards the magic treasure that was slashing towards it. Clang! Along with the sound of the violent collision, there was a loud bang. The Taotia's claws collided with the powerful magic treasure. The Taotai was forced back by the magic treasure. A woman in snow-white clothes walked out from the void. She wore a veil, but her temperament was otherworldly, like an immortal. Her body was even surrounded by immortal qi. She was like a fairy that had fallen from the 9 heavens to the mortal world. She was so holy and otherworldly. Saintess. When she saw the woman, Hongyu immediately exclaimed. Lin Feng was shocked. Was this woman in front of him the Saintess? Previously, she had attacked and repelled the unknown creature that was chasing after Lin Feng and the others. Human, go to hell. The Taotai roared furiously and quickly charged towards the Saintess. It was a very proud existence, but it was sent flying just now. Naturally, it was incomparably furious. The Taotia's killing intent was monstrous. It directly pounced towards the Saintess. The Saintess summoned the bright moon wheel back. Then, the bright moon will once again slash towards the Taotai. It was almost impossible for the Taotia's huge body to dodge the bright moon wheel's attack. The Taotai had no choice but to wave its huge claws towards the bright moon wheel again. But at this time, the bright moon wheel actually split into 2. It turned out that the bright moon wheel itself was yin and yang. Previously, they fused together. Now, the Saintess separated the bright moon wheel. A bright moon will collided with the Taotia's sharp claws. The other bright moon will swept towards the Taotia's body. Even with the Taotia's powerful defense, it still suffered heavy injuries. The scales on the Taotia's body fell off in large chunks. I'm going to eat you. The Taotai roared crazily and opened its bloody mouth to devour the Saintess. Endless darkness shrouded the world. It was said, when the Taotai opened its bloody mouth, wherever the darkness shrouded, it would be devoured by the Taotai. This terrifying ability made people feel that it was inconceivable. Bright moon illuminates heaven and earth. Suddenly, the Saintess's voice rang out. As soon as she finished speaking, a bright moon appeared behind the Saintess. The bright moon slowly rose into the sky. When the bright moon rose into the sky, a shocking scene suddenly occurred. The bright moon dispelled all the darkness. The Saintess came in front of the Taotai. She slapped her palm towards the Taotai. Humph! The Taotai couldn't help but snort coldly. A distorted black ball of energy appeared in his bloody mouth. The black ball of energy seemed to contain the power to destroy the world. That black energy ball was really too terrifying. The Saintess's expression changed slightly. She wanted to escape through the void, to avoid the attack of the black energy ball. But she didn't have time to do so. The black energy ball instantly blasted towards her. The Saintess quickly condensed a moonlight shield to protect her body. Bang! That tyrannical attack slammed into the Saintess, and she was sent flying. However, the defensive light shield that appeared outside her body was strong enough to help her resist the terrifying attack of the Taotai. Heaven Path Apocalyptic Claw. Suddenly, the Taotai roared and clawed at the Saintess across the void. A huge black claw condensed. The aura of that black claw was several times more terrifying than the black energy ball just now. Like the apocalyptic claw, its power was too terrifying. After the black claw condensed, it directly clawed at the Saintess. End of chapter. Chapter 53-44. Archean Dragonesque Elephant Art. Rest for a day, currently in progress. Please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 53-45. Facing the Taotia's attack. The Saintess condensed a new attack. Behind the Saintess, holy light intertwined. A celestial palace was formed. A fairy walked out of the celestial palace. That fairy flew over from the 9 heavens. She collided with the Taotia's claws. The attacks of both sides were annihilated once again. What a powerful battle strength. Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath. Whether it was the Taotai or the Saintess or the Saintess, their battle strength was indeed incomparably tyrannical. It wouldn't be easy to defeat each other in a short period of time. It would be even more difficult to kill the other party. Such powerful existences usually had some extremely terrifying moves in their hands. Once these moves were used, the destructive power would naturally be unimaginable. The counterattack of such a powerhouse before death could even drag the opponent down with him. Therefore, at their level, they wouldn't really fight to the death. Leave quickly. At this time, the Saintess spoke. Saintess, you must be careful. Hong Yuer said. Lin Feng and the others didn't stay any longer. They quickly left. 2 hours later, Lin Feng and the others let out a long breath. Now, they were finally safe. Lin Feng said, that Saintess seems to be quite good. Of course. Speaking of the Saintess, Hong Yuer's eyes immediately revealed a look of worship. Perhaps in her heart, Hong Yuer wanted to become a woman like the Saintess. The Saintess has always been kind, and she has always been wandering between the major powers. I hope that the major powers won't fight too fiercely. Moreover, the Saintess often helps others. Over the years, who knows how many cultivators have been saved by the Saintess. She's like the reincarnation of a saint. In the eastern region, countless people are extremely respectful to the Saintess, including me. I really hope that I can become someone like the Saintess in the future. Lin Feng said, in this era, there really are many people like her. Yes, Hong Yuer said. Then she clenched her fists and said, I want to become strong. The weak are destined to be bullied. Lin Feng and the others sped up. 3 days later, they arrived at the periphery of the Myriad Demon Lake. A large number of cultivators had already gathered at the periphery of the 10,000 Demons Lake. However, these cultivators did not rashly enter the Myriad Demon Lake to pick the Celestial Lake Night Heart Grass. Many people were waiting outside. Lin Feng and the others arrived. Hong Yuer sent people to inquire and found out that the first batch of mature Sky Lake Night Heart Grass had already been harvested. If he wanted to harvest the Heavenly Lake Night Heart Grass, he would need to go to a deeper place. The Sky Lake Night Heart Grass in the deeper regions had yet to mature, so it would probably take a few days before they could set off. After receiving the news, Lin Feng and the others could only wait outside the lake. I hope we don't go too deep. Otherwise, it'll be very dangerous. Hong Yu said worriedly, Thousand Demons Lake. This was indeed a place filled with dangers, and they could not afford to be careless. However, since they were all gathered in the outer area of the myriad Yao Lake, the ordinary native creatures would not dare to come and trouble so many cultivators, unless those native creatures didn't want to live anymore. At night, pairs of sinister and terrifying eyes appeared in the distant forest. Those eyes looked towards the place where the cultivators were resting. However, those terrifying creatures did not act rashly. The next few days were spent waiting anxiously. Everyone wanted to find the Sky Lake Night Heart Grass as soon as possible, including Lin Feng. Now, Lin Feng urgently needed to increase his cultivation level. In fact, Lin Feng still had a part of the source energy that had not been refined. When he had obtained the stone scripture, the expert from the mastermind's world had been killed by the stone man. The source energy left behind was naturally extremely powerful. However, Lin Feng had been in a state of high tension during this period of time. The external environment did not allow him to refine that ball of source energy. Lin Feng could only continue to wait for the time to refine the source energy, or he could wait until he obtained the Sky Lake Night Heart Grass. He would refine it together with the Sky Lake Night Heart Grass. Lin Feng's greatest wish was to break through to the true immortal realm as soon as possible, as long as he could complete the breakthrough. When the time came, Lin Feng was confident that he would be able to kill Di Wudao. After waiting for about 3 days, cultivators entered the 10,000 Demon Lake one after another. Let's go too, Hong Yueker said. And so, Lin Feng and the others also set off to enter the 10,000 Demon Lake. After a large number of cultivators entered the 10,000 Demon Lake, the 10,000 Demon Lake seemed to have become quiet. There were no powerful lake creatures in the outer area, so ordinary creatures naturally did not dare to provoke the cultivators. That evening, Lin Feng and the others arrived at an island not far from their destination. They needed to rest on the island for the night. They would set off tomorrow morning. If they were to fly in the lake at night, it would not be safe. The island was very big. There was a dense forest. Lin Feng and the others looked for a place to rest. At night, the sound of a zither and flute came from the depths of the lake. They listened carefully. There seemed to be a beautiful song mixed in. What's with these sounds? Everyone was alarmed. I don't know. It's always been there. Don't pay attention to it. Some of the cultivators who had entered the 10,000 Demon Lake before did not care much about it. Lin Feng could not help but frown slightly. Could there be any special meaning behind the sudden sound? Lin Feng was not sure about this. He hoped that everything would be fine. The next day, Lin Feng and the others set off to fly to the place where the Sky Lake Night Heart Grass grew. At noon, they arrived at the area. It was a very large area. Many cultivators had already dived down. Everyone be careful. This place is definitely very dangerous. Before going down, Hong Yue reminded them. Lin Feng and the others nodded. Then, they dived down to the bottom of the lake. The lake was very deep. They dived down for tens of thousands of meters before they reached the bottom. Then, everyone scattered around. They began to look for the Sky Lake Night Heart Grass. Previously, Lin Feng had already asked Hong Yue about the appearance of the Sky Lake Night Heart Grass. According to Hong Yue, the Sky Lake Night Heart Grass was a kind of 5-leaf grass. Immature Sky Lake Night Heart Grass was dark green, while mature ones were dark green. Immature Sky Lake Night Heart Grass could not be eaten because it was highly poisonous. Moreover, the Sky Lake Nightheart grass had very strict requirements for its living environment. It could only live in the 10,000 Demon Lake. It could not adapt to the environment outside the 10,000 Demon Lake. Therefore, if they saw immature Sky Lake Nightheart grass, they generally did not pick it. Lin Feng searched at the bottom of the lake for a while. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Please remember the domain name of this book, mobile version of reading website. Chapter 5346. After seeing the Heavenly Lake Nightheart grass, Lin Feng's face suddenly lit up. He finally found the first Heavenly Lake Nightheart grass. It didn't take too long. Lin Feng was naturally very happy because some people might not be able to find it even after searching for a long time. Lin Feng quickly swam towards the Heavenly Lake Nightheart grass. Lin Feng cultivated the grand water escape technique, so there was no difference between being in the water and being on the ground. In fact, it wasn't just Lin Feng. The other cultivators had powerful cultivation bases. Even if they didn't cultivate the grand water escape technique, they must have cultivated other water attribute magical powers. Therefore, there was basically no difference between being in the water and being on the ground. Soon, Lin Feng came to the coral reef. When Lin Feng was about to pick the Heavenly Lake Nightheart grass, suddenly, huge tentacles stretched out from the coral reef. Those tentacles wrapped towards Lin Feng, wanting to entangle Lin Feng. Coral demon! Lin Feng was shocked. That coral reef definitely became a spirit. That Heavenly Lake Nightheart grass was probably used to lure cultivators. When a cultivator approached the coral reef, the coral demon would immediately attack the cultivator. It was difficult for the cultivators who were being attacked to react at this time. However, Lin Feng's reaction was extremely fast. When those tentacles wrapped around him, his right hand gently waved in the void. Streaks of sword chi flew out. Those sword chi slashed towards the entangling coral tentacles. Clang, clang, clang. But a surprising thing happened. When Lin Feng's sword chi collided with the tentacles were destroyed. There was a clanging sound of collision. Lin Feng's sword chi was actually blocked by those coral tentacles. Lin Feng's face revealed an expression of disbelief. How powerful was the sword chi he slashed out? Lin Feng was very clear. However, such a powerful sword chi was actually blocked by the coral tentacles. The defensive power of the coral tentacles was too strong, wasn't it? It was too late for Lin Feng to dodge at this time. He was entangled by the coral tentacles. The coral tentacles were densely packed with poisonous thorns. Those poisonous thorns were very strange. They could easily pierce through a cultivator's magic power light shield, then pierce through the cultivator's skin and inject poison into the cultivator's body. The coral's poison was a kind of paralyzing poison, although it was not fatal. It could make the poisoned person's whole body weak and powerless. At that time, it would be a dead end. However, Lin Feng's body was already immune to poison. Although the coral's poison was terrible, it did not cause much harm to Lin Feng. Lin Feng hurriedly brought out the heaven's fire, although this was in the lake. However, the heaven's fire could still burn. This was the horror of the heavenly fire. The heavenly fire instantly ignited those tentacles, and those tentacles quickly shrank back. Lin Feng rushed forwards, picked Heavenly Lake as the coral demon, felt that Lin Feng was not to be trifled with, and fled into the distance at an extremely fast speed. Lin Feng came to find the Heavenly Lake Nightheart grass. Naturally, he had no interest in chasing after the coral demon. Seeing the coral demon escape, Lin Feng did not chase after the coral demon. Lin Feng continued to look for the Heavenly Lake Nightheart grass. Not long after, Lin Feng found the second Heavenly Lake Nightheart grass. This time, It was quite smooth and did not encounter any attacks from the lake monsters. After finding about a dozen Heavenly Lake's night heart grass, violent fluctuations came from the distance. It seemed that a great battle had broken out. Lin Feng quickly rushed over. When he arrived at that area, he saw Hong Yu, and the others fighting with a giant monster at the bottom of the lake. That giant monster at the bottom of the lake was a huge demon python. Its body was about 300 meters long, and its aura was very fierce. At this moment, the demon python spat out a large amount of energy attacks towards Hong Yu, and the others. Those energy attacks were similar to the Dragon Clan's Dragon Breath attack. However, the power was not as strong as the Dragon Breath attack. However, even if it was not as strong as the Dragon Breath, it was still strong enough. Cultivators who were attacked by the energy attacks had a certain chance of being frozen. Once frozen, the demon python would immediately rush forward and devour the frozen cultivator. 3 cultivators were frozen one after another. Then, the frozen cultivator was swallowed by the demon python in one gulp. Many people's eyes turned blood red. Seeing their companions die so miserably, everyone was naturally incomparably angry. But the demon python was too powerful. There was no way to resist. There was no way to escape, even if they wanted to, because a group of people were entangled by the demon python. There was no way to escape. At that moment, another cultivator was sealed in ice. The cultivator who was frozen was called Chu Yuan. Lin Feng had a relatively deep impression of him. Chu Yuan was a relatively talkative cultivator. The demon python swallowed Chu Yuan. "I'll kill you, Hong Yu," screamed in anger. Then, she quickly pounced towards the demon python. She wanted to save Chu Yuan. The demon python looked at Hong Yu, with contempt. The demon python opened its bloody mouth and spat out a silver-white energy ball towards Hong Yu. Ordinary energy balls had a certain chance of freezing others, but the silver-white energy ball had a 100% chance of freezing others. This silver-white energy ball needed to be brewed for a long time before it could be used. But Hong Yu did not know how terrifying the silver-white energy ball was. When her body came into contact with the silver-white energy ball, her body was also sealed in ice. The demon python opened its bloody mouth and swallowed Hong Yu. It wanted to first swallow Hong Yu, then swallow Chu Yuan. "Quickly go and save the boss." The rest of the people roared in anger. At this time, it was too late to save Hong Yu. What's more, although their cultivation was not bad compared to the demon python, it was still a lot weaker. Even if it was over, they would still be courting death. Just as Hong Yu was about to be swallowed, suddenly an arrow was shot at them. Sunshot Divine Arrow. It was the Sunshot Divine Arrow that Lin Feng had shot. The two sides were a bit far apart, so it was too late to use magic attacks. Fortunately, Lin Feng had the Ho Yi Bao and Sunshot Divine Arrow that could attack from a distance. At this critical moment, Lin Feng's Sunshot Divine Arrow was shot over. The demon python that was about to swallow Hong Yu saw the Sunshot Divine Arrow and spat out a ball of energy. That ball of energy was extremely powerful. It sent Lin Feng's Sunshot Divine Arrow flying. The demon python looked very proud. But in the next moment, the demonic python was terrified because the second Sunshot Divine Arrow had shot towards it when the first Sunshot Divine Arrow was sent flying. At this moment, it was too late for it to defend against the second Sunshot Divine Arrow. Pooh! There was a tearing sound. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 5347. Heavens! The python was killed. The cultivators shouted excitedly. The python was so terrifying, but it was killed. Everyone was shocked and excited. Everyone looked into the distance and saw Lin Feng walking over with a bow in his hand. When they saw this scene, everyone had an expression of disbelief. They didn't expect Lin Feng to be the one who killed the python. Before this, everyone thought Lin Feng was just a young man who liked to show off. As for Lin Feng's strength, they knew about Lin Feng's cultivation level. In this world where time had reversed, Lin Feng's immortal cultivation level could only be considered as a low-level cultivator. But Lin Feng had killed the python. That was too astonishing. It was too unbelievable. At this moment, the two sun-slaying divine arrows flew back to Lin Feng. Lin Feng put away the Ho-E bow and the sun-slaying divine arrows. That bow and those two arrows are extraordinary. A cultivator couldn't help but mutter. Then many people nodded. They felt the same way. Lin Feng had a treasure on him. This was something that no one had expected. At this moment, Hong Yu and Chu Yuan's frozen state had been lifted. However, after they were sealed in ice, they had suffered different degrees of injuries. Fortunately, their injuries weren't too serious. Damn python! It killed 3 of our companions. Hong Yu was very angry. She attacked the python's corpse with her sword. Streaks of sword chi condensed and slashed at the demonic python's body. However, they were unable to break through its defense. The python was really terrifying. Not good. There's a python coming from the distance. At this moment, Lin Feng suddenly said, hearing that there was a demonic python rushing over, everyone's expression suddenly changed. But when everyone looked around, they saw that Yi Zichen was in a daze. They didn't see any python. Hong Yu said, I don't see any python. It's not here yet. There's still some distance. Let's go. Lin Feng said. He took the lead and flew up. The others didn't dare to stay any longer and followed closely behind. Not long after, Lin Feng and the others saw the demonic python's figure. A large number of demonic pythons appeared. There were simply too many of them. The demonic python that was killed by Lin Feng could only be considered as a demonic python with a very average body size. Some of the larger demonic pythons were almost 1,000 meters long. That was the true expert among the demonic pythons. Many cultivators were attacked by the demonic pythons. Cultivators were constantly being killed and eaten by the demonic pythons. Situation. It was indeed very dangerous. Obviously, a large number of cultivators had entered the bottom of the lake to collect the celestial lake night heart grass, which had alarmed some of the creatures in the myriad demon lake. These powerful demonic pythons were alarmed just like that. Therefore, these demonic pythons quickly rushed over. The cultivators who entered the depths of the myriad demons lake naturally became the targets of these demon pythons. These ferocious beasts were very interested in killing cultivators. There was a reason for that. 1. In order to improve themselves, cultivators would do everything in their power to evolve their bloodline. Therefore, the bloodline of cultivators was often much stronger than the bloodline of ferocious beasts. Although there were many ways for the ferocious beasts to improve their cultivation, but because these ferocious beasts carried the most primitive wildness, therefore, these ferocious beasts liked to devour the bloodline of other living beings to improve their strength or to complete the evolution of their bloodline. Secondly, cultivators had a lot of good things on them, such as all kinds of heavenly treasures, medicinal pills, magic treasures, divine ability inheritances, and so on. Of course, because these ferocious beasts often had the divine ability passed down from their race, these ferocious beasts might not be too interested in the divine ability inheritances of cultivators. In addition, The ferocious beasts had tyrannical bodies. So many ferocious beasts were not interested in the magic treasures of cultivators. However, they were interested in heavenly treasures, medicinal pills, and the like, especially some top-notch medicinal pills. Those ferocious beasts did not know how to refine medicinal pills. Since they could not satisfy their own needs, they could only hunt cultivators to find all kinds of powerful medicinal pills. At this moment, other than the many demonic pythons, there were also some other terrifying creatures. For example, there was a kind of giant leech that grew at the bottom of the lake. That kind of leech was about 20 meters long and had huge suction cups on its body. Any magic treasure that was sent out to kill them would be sucked in. This made many cultivators suffer unspeakable pain. Other kinds of creatures at the bottom of the lake also came one after another. Fortunately, Lin Feng and the others had left a little earlier. Otherwise, they would have been blocked by those creatures at the bottom of the lake. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Lin Feng and the others quickly rushed out of the water. Many cultivators also rushed out of the water one after another. "We can't stay here for long. Let's go," Lin Feng said in a deep voice. This was indeed not a place to stay for long. Lin Feng and the others quickly flew towards the island where they had rested before. More and more cultivators rushed out from the bottom of the lake. Those cultivators also did not dare to stay. They also flew towards the island from before. Many demonic pythons, leeches, and other ferocious beasts surfaced one after another and attacked the cultivators above the lake. Some cultivators were attacked by those terrifying beasts and directly fell into the lake. Those cultivators seemed to have no choice but to die. The rest of the cultivators hurriedly flew to a higher position. They went high up in the sky and escaped the attack range of the ferocious beasts in the lake. However, before they could even let out a sigh of relief, a dense group of birds flew over from the distance. Not long after, those birds had already met the cultivators. Those birds were all bird-type creatures that lived in the lake and the island. Some were strong, some were weak. There were simply too many of them. Everyone had no choice but to block the attacks of those bird-type creatures. Many people were killed by those bird-type creatures. However, this was not even the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was that golden holy swords flew out from the lake below one after another. Those golden holy swords were infinitely powerful. It was as if they could easily tear the void apart. The densely packed golden holy swords slashed towards many cultivators. Pooh, pooh, pooh. The sound of tearing could be heard without end. Many cultivators were directly cut in half by those golden holy swords. Seeing this scene, even Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. South. At this time, one of the golden holy swords slashed towards Lin Feng. Confine. Lin Feng lightly tapped it with his hand. The golden holy sword was stopped in midair by Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at the golden holy sword. He noticed there was a pair of eyes on both sides of the golden holy sword. This was not a sword at all. Please remember the domain name of this book, mobile version of reading website. Chapter 5348. What the hell is that thing? Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. That's a golden holy swordfish, a creature that looks like a treasure sword. It's extremely rare and has already gone extinct in the outside world. I didn't expect that there would still be one here. Hurry up and leave this place. The attacks of these golden holy swordfish are too powerful. If we don't leave quickly, it will be very troublesome if we are surrounded by them. The demon lord said in a deep voice. Lin Feng nodded, but this wasn't the time for him to leave. A large number of golden holy swordfish wreaked havoc. It was extremely terrifying. Some cultivators took out their defensive treasures to block the attacks of the golden holy swordfish. However, those cultivators' defensive treasures were unable to block the terrifying attacks of the golden holy swordfish. Many defensive treasures were destroyed by the golden holy swordfish. Lin Feng directly cut the golden holy swordfish in half. At this time, a large number of golden holy swordfish charged towards Lin Feng and the others. "What should we do now?" someone asked with a pale face. They didn't know that the golden holy swordfish were terrifying creatures like the golden holy swordfish. However, they knew how terrifying the golden holy swordfish were. They had thought that the golden holy swordfish were actually powerful treasures. Moreover, they couldn't understand why there were so many of them. The number was so high that it made their hair stand on end. However, the situation was as such. The most important thing was how to resolve the crisis in front of them. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Hong Yu's face was also very pale. She couldn't think of a good solution at the moment. At this time, Lin Feng took out the Hell King bell. Then he said, "Everyone, follow me. I will bring everyone out." Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw Lin Feng take out another powerful treasure. They clearly remembered the scene when Lin Feng used the bow to kill the demonic python. Many people were still muttering that Lin Feng actually had such a powerful treasure. Wasn't his luck too good? Now that Lin Feng had taken out another terrifying magic treasure, they couldn't help but be curious about Lin Feng's origins. These people were not ordinary people. Naturally, the way they looked at things was also extremely extraordinary. If Lin Feng only had one powerful artifact, it could be attributed to luck. But now, Lin Feng had brought out another powerful magic weapon. This made them think that there might be some powerful force behind Lin Feng. In addition, Lin Feng was already an earthly immortal at such a young age. He was indeed extraordinary. Of course, no one thought too much about it. The most important thing now was to leave this place. Lin Feng led everyone into the Hell King's bell. Then, he controlled the Hell King bell to rush out of the outer region. The densely packed golden, holy swordfish attacked the Pluto King's bell. Clang! 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 Those golden, holy swordfish were like powerful magic treasures. A series of clanging sounds could be heard. The collision between the Hell King's bell and the golden holy swordfish created a powerful shockwave that tore the void apart. It could be seen how terrifying this collision was. Fortunately, the Hell King's bell was strong enough. The golden holy swordfish couldn't break through the Hell King's bell's defense at all. Instead, a large number of golden holy swordfish were sent flying by the Hell King's bell. In the end, the Hell King's bell rushed out of the encirclement. Lin Feng and the others safely returned to the island from before. The sky was getting dark. Obviously, they couldn't fly in the lake of 10,000 demons at night. Because it was more dangerous, Lin Feng and the others decided to wait for a night and set off tomorrow morning. "I'm afraid many people will die this time," someone said with a sigh. They originally had 18 people on their side, but now 3 of them had died. This made everyone sigh. But this was the cruel nature of the world of cultivators. It was extremely difficult for anyone to survive. Lin Feng put away his magic treasure. He said, "Let's find a place to rest. I feel that tonight might not be peaceful, so we need to adjust to our peak condition as soon as possible." Hearing Lin Feng's words, many people's expressions changed, slightly. Hong Yu said, "Do you think that the creatures in the lake will attack the island?" Lin Feng smiled bitterly and said, "I hope that's not the case, but we need to consider this. What if it really happens?" Chu Yuan said, "The lakes and islands in the ocean are the same as the cities, villages, and tribes on the continent. They've all been blessed. That's why those terrifying creatures, they can easily destroy those creatures. They definitely won't attack those places. Lin Feng said, on the continent, indigenous creatures have attacked cities and villages, although the chances of that happening aren't very high. But it's still happened before. So it's not that unbelievable that this island will be attacked. Hong Yu nodded and said, what little brother Lin said makes sense. We need to be prepared. The others couldn't help but smile bitterly. This was the worst possible outcome. No one wanted to see the creatures of the 10,000 Demon Lake besiege the island. Everyone began to look for a place to rest. They found a remote and quiet valley, and Lin Feng set up a few defensive restrictions. As a result, even if someone came over, they wouldn't be afraid of being disturbed. Following this, Lin Feng and the others entered and recovered. Late at night, splashing sounds could be heard from the lake. A huge wave rose up outside the island. A huge tail was swinging. No one knew what it was. When the huge tail swung, something terrifying happened. A huge wave rose into the sky and crashed towards the island. Bang! The huge wave hit the island, causing it to shake violently. What's going on? Everyone was alarmed. Even Lin Feng and the others, who were in seclusion, were alarmed. They all rushed out, wanting to see what was going on. A large number of cultivators came to the periphery of the island. At this moment, they saw a huge tail whipping towards the surface of the lake again. Next, a second wave of 10,000 feet tall surged over. Bang! The second wave slammed into the island. This time, the island shook even more violently. What was that thing just now? A cultivator said in horror. The tail of that being just now was about 10 kilometers long. It was simply too huge. It was hard to imagine what kind of existence it was. Is it the king of the 10,000 Demon Lake? Someone said with a trembling voice, his eyes filled with fear. Sogu, Chapter 5349. A king-level giant beast. In the time, Reversal World was too terrifying. It was definitely a heaven-defying existence. Someone said, it's not a king-level existence. There's only one king-level existence in the Lake of 10,000 Demons, and that's the king of 10,000 demons. But the king of 10,000 demons is now old and won't come out easily. But that existence is also very terrifying. Even if it's not a king-level existence, it's very likely to be a quasi-king-level existence. At this time, another cultivator said. This cultivator's words resonated with everyone else's agreement. Indeed, that unknown existence was really terrifying. It was definitely a quasi-king level existence. The quasi-king level existence in the Lake of 10,000 Demons was definitely a saint level existence. Crash! Huge waves surged. That terrifying existence once again whipped its tail. Huge waves rolled towards the lake. The lake began to move. Many people's faces turned pale, and they were extremely frightened. What is it trying to do? Is it really going to attack the island? If it wants to attack the island, why hasn't it done so yet? Some cultivators were puzzled and asked, in many people's eyes, that terrifying existence didn't really attack the island by rolling up huge waves. The real attack was to use a powerful divine ability to directly attack the island. An attack by such a powerful existence. The island couldn't withstand it at all. It's testing. An old man said in a serious voice. Testing what? Someone asked. Testing whether it will suffer a backlash. The old man said, at this time, many people thought of the blessing of the ancient powerhouse. Everyone's eyes were filled with hope. Naturally, everyone hoped. The blessing of the ancient powerhouse on the island could cause a backlash to that terrifying existence. However, several huge waves had already bombarded the island in succession. However, that terrifying existence did not suffer any backlash at all. Did it mean that that terrifying existence wouldn't suffer from a backlash? This was also a very likely thing. After a dozen consecutive tests, the terrifying existence in the lake seemed to have confirmed this point. So that terrifying existence began to launch an even more powerful attack. In the sky, thunder rumbled. Among the thunderbolts, there were huge bolts of lightning that looked like giant dragons. They emitted a suffocating aura. Boom! Along with the world-destroying shock waves that swept through the world. Then, something terrifying happened. Thick thunderbolts descended from the sky and blasted toward the island. Every bolt of lightning. They were as thick as a mountain. There were simply too many lightning bolts in the air. Is the island going to be destroyed? We're really done for this time. I don't want to die. Screams of terror rang out one after another. Many people's faces were pale and filled with despair. In the eyes of many people, the situation before them was indeed too terrifying. It made people turn pale with fright. The expressions of many powerful cultivators turned grave. Once the island was destroyed, they would be completely exposed. In the darkness, there were many unknown existences. Those unknown existences could be hiding in the void, in the mountains, in the desert, or in the plains. Anywhere. Those terrifying existences could appear at any moment. Therefore, the current situation was extremely dangerous. Just as the thick bolts of lightning were about to strike the island, a loud boom rang out. Suddenly, a divine light shield appeared above the island. Bang! 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 The dense thunderbolts blasted the divine light shield. The thunderbolts were terrifying. However, they were blocked by the divine light shield. After a short moment of silence, loud cheers rang out from the island. It's working. The blessing of the ancient powerhouse is working. Ha ha ha, we're saved now. Many cultivators were incomparably excited. At this moment, a ray of divine light flew out from the depths of the island and blasted toward the quasi-king in the lake. No one knew where the ray of divine light came from. Even the cultivators in the depths of the lake couldn't pinpoint the exact location. That quasi-king broke some rules. It's going to be punished. A cultivator said, excitedly, "Will that quasi-king be killed? If it's killed, then its origin energy is definitely an unimaginable treasure. Its effect of increasing cultivation is definitely much better than the Skylake Nithart grass." Then, another cultivator said, excitedly, after hearing these words, Lin Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes. These people, that was really too whimsical of him. The blessing of the ancient powerhouse had indeed struck back at the quasi-king. But don't forget that the quasi-king was a saint realm existence. How could the blessing of the ancient powerhouse kill such a terrifying existence? Actually, Lin Feng had the feeling that something had happened. Otherwise, such a strong cultivator wouldn't have personally come out to deal with the situation. Lin Feng suddenly thought of the zither and flute that he heard from the depths of the lake, as well as a very beautiful voice. Could it be, did the quasi-king's appearance have anything to do with those voices? Of course, these were only Lin Feng's guesses. Whether or not it was really related, Lin Feng didn't know. At this moment, the ray of divine light that flew out from the island had already blasted the quasi-king's body. Blood splattered everywhere. Then the quasi-king let out a painful roar. Quasi-king. Anger. Overflowing killing intent. Ha ha ha, the quasi-king is injured. Just wait and see. Even if the quasi-king doesn't die, he'll still lose a layer of skin. Many cultivators laughed excitedly. Ray after ray of divine light shot towards the quasi-king. Under the attack of the divine light, the quasi-king's injuries worsened. A thick smell of blood floated from the lake. This fellow recklessly came here. Now he's out of luck, isn't he? Serves him right. When the quasi-king is killed, I'll definitely get some of his meat to try. I haven't eaten the meat of a Saint Realm beast before. I wonder how it tastes. Many cultivators started to discuss. Lin Feng couldn't help but be speechless. Seeing so many cultivators so pleased with themselves, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel uneasy. Would there be any changes? If there really was a change, these people would go from joy to sorrow. How many years has it been? How many years has it been? I can't even remember the last time I bled. The quasi-king's furious roar came from the lake. Lin Feng furrowed his brows. When he heard the quasi-king's roar filled with killing intent, he suddenly felt that things were not going well. Moreover, this feeling was very strong. Chapter 53:50. Damn it, it's about to be killed, and it's still acting cool. A cultivator curled his lips and said, "Just as you said, that guy is about to be killed. Since it's about to be killed, it should be acting cool all the more, because it won't have the chance to act cool after it dies." Another cultivator mocked. "Shut up." An old cultivator reprimanded coldly. Sometimes one shouldn't get carried away, and some things shouldn't be said carelessly, because many times a person's mouth was very strange. When you say something bad might happen. There were many such examples in the world of cultivators. Being old often meant being strong. After being reprimanded by the old cultivator, many cultivators shut up. Those cultivators didn't dare to provoke the old cultivator. Wasn't that courting death? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Deep in the island, rays of divine light continued to fly out and then bombarded the terrifying quasi-king. However, at this time, Lin Feng found something wrong. The power of the divine light seemed to be weakening. As for the quasi-king, he used a new technique. Many scales appeared on the surface of the quasi-monarch's body. These scales looked very much like dragon scales, but they weren't dragon scales. Before, the quasi-king's body didn't have any protection, but with the addition of these scales, the divine light was blocked by the scales. After seeing this scene, many people's faces suddenly changed, especially those cultivators who were too proud before. They were so scared that their faces turned pale. There was no trace of blood. The power of the divine light is weakening. At this time, a middle-aged cultivator said in a deep voice. He noticed this a little later than Lin Feng, and the other cultivators didn't even notice it. When the middle-aged cultivator said this, the other cultivators noticed the situation. So, the other cultivators sensed it. They found that the power of the divine light was actually weakening. What do we do? What do we do? Many people became incomparably anxious. It was like ants on a hot pan. The people around Lin Feng also had ugly expressions. Hong Yu said, "If the divine light can't kill the quasi-king, does that mean that the island will be destroyed by the quasi-king?" Lin Feng smiled bitterly and nodded. "That's most likely the case. Now, let's prepare to escape." Hong Yu, and the others nodded bitterly. The island was very chaotic. Just as Lin Feng had said before, these people had changed from being overjoyed to being overjoyed at the speed of light. Many people couldn't accept this change. It was as if they were going crazy. About 100 rays of divine light continuously. By the time he reached the 60th ray, he was no longer able to pose any threat to the quasi-monarch. After the divine light struck the quasi-monarch's body, it was as if it was merely scratching an itch. The energy between heaven and earth became incomparably chaotic. Many people's faces changed, because the main culprit behind the chaos in the energy of heaven and earth was a quasi-king. This was troublesome. "Get ready to leave the island," said Lin Feng. Hong Yu, and the others nodded. There are so many creatures in the lake. Someone pointed at the lake. It wasn't just the quasi-king that had come to the lake. A quasi-king level existence could command the terrifying creatures in the lake of 10,000 demons. But now, more and more terrifying creatures were arriving, and those terrifying creatures were surfacing on the surface. They looked coldly at the cultivators on the island. Boom, 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 boom. At that moment, in the sky, huge fireballs smashed towards the island like meteors from outer space. The island's defensive barrier had already dissipated when the divine light no longer appeared. Thus, the island was now defenseless. Let's go. When he saw the fireballs, Lin Feng shouted and took the lead to rush out. They couldn't stay on the island any longer. Otherwise, it would be even more dangerous. This island would definitely not be able to survive and would be destroyed. Everyone quickly rushed out of the island. The rest of the people also rushed outside in a panic. Many fireballs smashed down. Some of the unlucky cultivators who were trying to fly out were struck by the fireballs as they smashed down on their bodies. Then, those unlucky cultivators, they were directly smashed into meat paste. It was too tragic. The cultivators who were luckier rushed out. The quasi-king didn't deal with the cultivators who rushed out. Perhaps it was because of disdain. Thinking about it, it made sense. The quasi-king was a sage realm existence. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't be qualified for the quasi-king to deal with. The quasi-king was probably looking for a powerful target to attack. However, even if the quasi-king didn't attack, it wouldn't be easy to get out. Many terrifying creatures in the lake attacked the cultivators. Creatures like the golden sacred swordfish appeared again and started a massacre. Lin Feng was happy to see that the quasi-king didn't attack. It would be very dangerous for the quasi-king to attack. Lin Feng saw hope when the quasi-king didn't attack. Lin Feng wanted to do the same, so he brought everybody into the Hell King's bell. Then, he started to activate the Hell King bell. The Hell King bell shot forward like a cannonball. No matter what kind of creatures blocked it, all of them were sent flying by the Hell King's bell. Lin Feng and the others once again relied on the Hell King bell to rush out of the encirclement. This made Lin Feng and the others very happy. Sometimes, having a powerful treasure could definitely play a key role in many situations. Like now, little brother Lin, what is your treasure called? It's really powerful. Hong Yu asked. Hell King Bell. Lin Feng said. Hiss, the sound of cold air being sucked in could be heard. Chu Yuan said, this is a legendary treasure, forged by the Hell King. Lin Feng nodded. Hong Yu asked, you can't be a descendant of the Hell King, right? Lin Feng said, of course not. The Hell King is from the ghost race, and I am from the human race. At this moment, the Hell King bell seemed to have received a huge impact and actually shook violently. Not good. The Hell King bell is under attack. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly just as he finished speaking. The Hell King bell received an even more powerful attack. A force that could topple mountains and overturn seas slammed into the Hell King bell. Many people coughed up blood from the powerful recoil. Then, a group of cultivators was sent flying after the Hell King bell received such a heavy blow. It quickly flew back into Lin Feng's dantian. Lin Feng and the others stabilized themselves and glanced around, but they didn't see anything. However, everyone felt as though death was looming over them. Pooh! One of the cultivators beside Lin Feng suffered an unknown attack. His head was separated from his body. Fresh blood spurted out from his severed neck. Please remember the domain name of this book, mobile version of reading website. Chapter 53, 51. That cultivator didn't know that such a terrifying thing would happen. So after his head was cut off, he didn't die immediately. Instead, he lowered his head and looked down. He saw his body falling into the lake. Only then did he realize. It turned out that his head had already been separated from his body. He let out an incomparably terrified scream. After the scream, his life was over. His head also fell into the lake. Lin Feng didn't know what kind of creature attacked him, but he was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat because the dead cultivator was too close to him. If the target of that terrifying existence's attack just now was him, the consequences, it was simply unimaginable. What the hell is that thing? What the hell is that thing? Someone shouted in fear. The unknown was the most terrifying because no one saw anything. So, now, everyone was incomparably terrified. They didn't know what was hidden in the dark. Suddenly, Lin Feng's blood quickly flowed out. The aura of death. It enveloped his body. Lin Feng's heart trembled. He knew that he had been targeted by that terrifying existence. Or else, he wouldn't have this kind of feeling. The death of that cultivator from before was still vivid in his mind. So, when Lin Feng's sudden inspiration ability was activated, Lin Feng instantly used the heaven patching technique. He disappeared from where he stood. Lin Feng appeared 200 meters away before that terrifying feeling disappeared. "Come here quickly." Lin Feng shouted in a deep voice. He put away the bell of hell. The others quickly flew towards Lin Feng. They had no other choice now, so they couldn't help but listen to Lin Feng's orders. Pooh! Another cultivator's head flew into the sky. The second cultivator died, tragically. "I don't want to die," someone shouted in fear. Many people were scared out of their wits. If they could live, no one wanted to die. But the key was, what was the existence in the darkness? They couldn't even find its whereabouts. This was the most terrifying part. Lin Feng's body emitted a mass of demonic qi. The demonic qi covered his body. In the demonic qi, Lin Feng opened his eye of origin, heavenly demon snake eye. Lin Feng looked around with his eye of origin. He saw a mysterious black shadow. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. Although he still couldn't see what it was, he could finally see that guy. That beast was extremely fast. It circled behind Lin Feng and the others, wanting to attack them. Lin Feng guessed. This kind of thing belonged to one of the unknown creatures when the darkness fall. Of course, these unknown creatures were weak and strong. The methods they were good at were also different. The unknown creature in front of him, it should be an unknown creature that was better at concealment and assassination. If it wasn't for Lin Feng's eye of origin, he wouldn't have been able to discover this guy at all. This was because this unknown creature could avoid the detection of spiritual will. This was extremely frightening. Cultivators mainly relied on spiritual will to sense things that couldn't be seen. Once spiritual will lost its effect, one could imagine what kind of terrifying situation would happen next. Lin Feng hurriedly took out his 36 bamboo swords. This unknown creature's aura was sinister and terrifying. It belonged to a dark attribute creature. Lin Feng's 36 bamboo swords were supreme treasures of extreme yang. They were the most effective against those evil ghosts. Although the restraint against these dark attribute creatures wasn't as strong as the restraint against those evil ghosts. But this was only relatively speaking. The 36 bamboo swords were also very effective against these dark attribute creatures. *CK, he took out a new magic treasure. After seeing Lin Feng take out a new magic treasure, someone immediately cried out, "Lin Feng's magic treasure." It was really endless. This caused everyone to be extremely shocked, but then everyone became excited. Lin Feng took out a new magic treasure at this time. Did he already find a way to deal with that unknown existence? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, everyone saw Lin Feng take out his 36 bamboo swords and fly out. The 36 bamboo swords flew quickly in the air. They seemed to be attacking something. Puff! Suddenly, a tearing sound was heard. One of the bamboo swords tore through the body of the unknown existence. Blood spurted out. The bamboo sword was stained with blood. Screech! The unknown existence let out a sharp and ear-piercing cry. Lin Feng's sword just now had injured the unknown existence. The unknown existence looked at Lin Feng with eyes full of killing intent. It tried to get close to Lin Feng and then attack Lin Feng. However, after many attempts, none of them were able to get close to Lin Feng. Because Lin Feng could see it, so Lin Feng was able to use the bamboo swords to continuously attack it. At the beginning, the unknown existence obviously didn't know about this matter. It thought that Lin Feng had accidentally injured it. After many failures, the unknown existence also guessed that Lin Feng could see it. The unknown existence let out a series of deep roars. It was now extremely angry and aggrieved. At this time, Lin Feng took the initiative to attack the unknown existence, because they couldn't stay here for too long. Otherwise, when other terrifying creatures appeared, it would be extremely dangerous. They had to end the battle quickly. Lin Feng's 36 bamboo swords displayed a terrifying power. After the unknown terrifying existence was attacked by Lin Feng's 36 bamboo swords, many deep wounds appeared on its body. In the end, the unknown existence fled into the distance. Meeting Lin Feng was also this guy's bad luck. Let's go quickly. Lin Feng withdrew his Eye of Origin and then said in a deep voice. He took the lead and flew into the distance. The rest of the people followed closely behind. However, no one spoke on the way. Everyone's mood was a little heavy. They returned to the shore without any problems. At this moment, many cultivators had already gathered on the shore. Some cultivators had escaped from the lake. Most of the cultivators were cultivators who didn't have time to enter the lake. Originally, those cultivators wanted to enter the lake during the day tomorrow to look for the heavenly lake night heart grass. Who would have thought that such a big change would occur? Those cultivators were incomparably glad. If they had come a day earlier, they would have already entered the lake. In that case, they might have also died inside the lake. Lin Feng and the others wanted to find a place to rest, but at this moment, a group of cultivators quickly walked over. Those cultivators surrounded Lin Feng and the others. These people were none other than Zhou Ziqing. Hee, I didn't expect that we would meet here again. Do you still remember what I said? If I see you again, you definitely won't have a good ending. Now, I'll give you a chance to live. Break one of your arms, and I'll spare your dog life. Zhou Ziqing looked at Lin Feng contemptuously. This chapter ends. Chapter 53-52. Lin Feng naturally knew that there was a holy immortal behind Zhou Ziqing, but so what? As long as this guy dared to cause trouble for him, he would not be polite to him. Lin Feng was never someone who would not fight back after being bullied. Hong Yu said, Zhou Ziqing, don't go too far. Zhou Ziqing sneered. He naturally did not care about Hong Yu. Zhou Ziqing sneered and said, shut up, and it's best if you don't meddle in other people's business. Otherwise, do you believe that I won't capture you and sell you to a brothel? Previously, Zhou Ziqing did not make a move because he was afraid of the Holy Maiden. Now, Zhou Ziqing naturally did not fear the Holy Maiden. Right now, Zhou Ziqing was only thinking about how to deal with Lin Feng. Therefore, he did not take Hong Yu's words to heart. Moreover, he was not just saying those words to threaten Hong Yu. Zhou Ziqing was really capable of doing these things. You're shameless. Hongyu was so angry that her face turned ashen. Lin Feng patted Hongyu's shoulder and said, "There's no need to be angry over such a slut. He's not worthy." After hearing Lin Feng scold Zhou Ziqing, Hongyu felt very relieved. However, after thinking about the difference in strength between the two sides, Hongyu could not help but become extremely worried. Zhou Ziqing's side had more than 20 people, and they were very strong. On their side, there were only 13 people left. If they really fought, they would definitely not be a match for Zhou Ziqing and the others. When Zhou Ziqing heard Lin Feng's words, his face immediately became extremely gloomy. He had originally thought that Lin Feng would be very afraid. However, Lin Feng was not only not afraid, he was actually insulting him here. How could Zhou Ziqing tolerate this? He immediately flew into a rage. The killing intent in his eyes became even stronger. "Brat, you found the wrong person to show off to. Later, I won't kill you directly. I'll cut off your flesh piece by piece." Zhou Ziqing looked at Lin Feng with a cold gaze. Hongyu knew that this battle was unavoidable. She coldly said, "F***ck your mother. Who's afraid of who? The worst that could happen was death. Let's see if we can skin you alive before we die." Hongyu had never cursed before. This was the first time Lin Feng had heard Hongyu swear. When a woman cursed, it gave people a very strange feeling. The most direct reaction to this feeling was that Lin Feng felt that the current Hongyu seemed to be even more enchanting. "That's right, what are you afraid of? Fight them to the death. If you die, 20 years later, you'll be a hero again." Chu Yuan shouted. His life was saved by Lin Feng. Although he didn't say it out loud, he was very grateful to Lin Feng in his heart. Therefore, he was willing to risk his life to make a move. I'm going to chop off that bastard Zhou Ziqing's head. I've long since found him an eyesore." Another cultivator spoke up. This cultivator was tall and sturdy. His name was Dashinyo, and he was a cultivator from the Demon Ox clan. His weapon was a giant axe. His mountain-like body, coupled with such a powerful weapon, gave off a very intimidating aura. The rest of the people also supported Lin Feng. This made Lin Feng feel a little gratified. It seemed that these people really wanted to do well. When the surrounding cultivators saw that a conflict had broken out, they had already surrounded them. The cultivators were pointing and whispering. They were all waiting for a good show to start. Zhou Ziqing sneered and ordered, "Reckless fools. Since you want to die, I can fulfill your wish. Other than Hongyu, and that brat, kill everyone else." "Yes." The group of cultivators beside Zhou Ziqing hurriedly responded. Then those people pounced towards Lin Feng and the others. All of them were filled with killing intent. Hongyu, and the others were about to fight with their lives. Lin Feng waved his hand and said, "There's no need for everyone to do anything. Against these guys, I'll just use some of the spiritual insects I've been raising." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng took out the swarm of desert god killing insects. A large number of desert god killing insects flew towards the 20 cultivators. "It's the desert god killing insects." Some of the cultivators who were watching from the sidelines recognized the swarm of insects that Lin Feng had taken out and immediately screamed in fear. Desert god killing insects, a terrifying swarm of insects that made one's soul tremble. Of course, if one did not know about this kind of creature, they would not be afraid. However, those who knew, they were all scared to death. Desert god killing insects. Are they very powerful? Someone asked. Of course they're powerful. This is a swarm of insects that can devour everything. You'll soon know how powerful these insects are. A cultivator who knew about the origin of the desert god killing insects said. As soon as that cultivator finished speaking, the 20 cultivators were surrounded by the desert god-killing insects. There were simply too many desert god-killing insects. They blotted out the sky and covered the earth. There were countless of them. Creatures like insects were terrifying to begin with. Moreover, there were so many desert god-killing insects that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Just looking at them was enough to make one's hair stand on end. No, one even heard the screams. When the swarm of desert god-killing insects flew over, everyone saw there were more than 20 skeletons lying on the ground. After seeing those skeletons, many people could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. The strength of those cultivators was extremely strong. They did not even have the strength to resist. They died just like that. Their deaths were really too tragic. Hung Yu's red lips were slightly open. That look was really quite alluring. As for the others, their eyes were also wide open. They simply could not believe what they were seeing. This little brother Lin, the swarm of insects that he had taken out was too awesome, wasn't it? He had actually killed more than 20 experts in such a short time. It was really shocking. At this moment, everyone was even more curious about Lin Feng's background. He was young, had a powerful cultivation, had many top-notch magic treasures, and even had such a powerful swarm of insects. He was definitely the young master of a top-notch force. Zhou Ziqing looked at Lin Feng in anger. Although Zhou Ziqing's cultivation was powerful, he was not confident in facing the swarm of insects. The swarm of insects did not attack Zhou Ziqing. Instead, they surrounded Zhou Ziqing. Zhou Ziqing said coldly, "I didn't expect you to have such a powerful swarm of insects. I'll admit defeat today." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Ziqing took out a jade talisman. The jade talisman exploded. Many desert god-killing insects were drowned by the destructive power of the jade talisman's explosion. Those desert god-killing insects died tragically. Then Zhou Ziqing rushed outside. He wanted to seize this opportunity to escape. Lin Feng sneered. He took out the Ho Yi Bao and the Sunshot Divine Arrow. Whoosh! The Sunshot Divine Arrow flew out and caught up with Zhou Ziqing in an instant. When Zhou Ziqing heard the sound of something tearing through the air, he turned around and saw the Sunshot Divine Arrow shooting towards him. His expression changed drastically. At this moment, it was too late to dodge. Uffed, accompanied by the sound of something being torn apart, Zhou Ziqing's body was instantly pierced through by the Sunshot Divine Arrow. End of chapter. Chapter 53:53. He's dead. That guy was actually shot to death. The guy who was killed seemed to be a peak golden immortal. That young man is definitely not simple. He brought out a powerful swarm of insects, and even his magic treasure is so powerful. How unimaginable. Hee. How could anyone who can enter the time-reversed world be simple? Moreover, there's a certain type of person you need to pay special attention to in the time-reversed world. They're very young cultivators. You need to be careful when you encounter them. It's best not to offend them so easily. Why? Think about it. If a young cultivator enters the time-reversed world, isn't that the same as committing suicide? But no one is stupid. Who would want to commit suicide? Since that's not the case, why would he dare to enter the time-reversed world? There are only two reasons. First, that young man is extremely confident in his own strength. Second, that young man came in with his seniors. Regardless of the situation, it's best not to provoke him. Of course, you might be able to pick up a soft persimmon, but what if you end up kicking an iron plate? Take that guy from before, for example. He brought a group of people with him, looking extremely pretentious. But what happened in the end? In the end, he still ended up dead, and his Tao dissipated. Brother, your words have really enlightened me. many people started discussing spiritedly. Lin Feng looked at Hong Yu, and the others with the swarm of insects, the Ho Yibao, and the sunshot divine arrow. He said, "We can't stay here for long. Let's go." At that moment, Hong Yu, and the others came back to their senses. The crowd didn't stop either. They all followed Lin Feng. Hong Yu, looked at Lin Feng and said, "You're so young, but you have so many tricks up your sleeve. Tell me honestly, which faction are you from?" Lin Feng said, "My background is too extraordinary. I'm afraid that I'll scare you if I tell you, so it's best if I don't tell you." Everyone naturally knew that Lin Feng was joking. They could also tell that Lin Feng didn't want to talk too much about his background. Hong Yu was a smart person, so she didn't ask any more questions. Hong Yu didn't ask any more questions. The rest of the people didn't even bother to ask. Now that Zhao Ziqing has been killed, if the expert behind him decides to act, we'll be in trouble. The divine beast said, "What are you afraid of? My big brother Feng's insect swarm can guarantee that the enemy won't be able to escape." Hong Yu thought about it. She also felt that Lin Feng's swarm of insects was truly terrifying. Therefore, such a formidable swarm of insects might really be able to deal with experts at the Saint Immortal realm. So the worry in his heart eased up greatly. Everyone found a place to rest. Lin Feng set up a restriction, and then each of them found a place to sit cross-legged and recover. The night was not calm because the battle in the lake was still going on. Many cultivators were looking inside the lake to pay attention to the situation of the battle. More and more cultivators managed to escape. They brought out some news. It was said that the terrifying Quasi-King had set his eyes on a group of foreign creatures and had launched a frenzied attack on them. Speaking of which, it was strange. The Quasi-King didn't care about the other creatures at all. However, the Quasi-King only focused on dealing with the foreign creatures. This matter surprised everyone. Lin Feng only found out about this the next day. After receiving this news, Lin Feng couldn't help but frown and ponder. Before, Lin Feng saw that the Quasi-King level cultivator didn't attack the ordinary cultivators. Lin Feng thought that the Quasi-King disdained to deal with the ordinary cultivators. The Quasi-King's target was the top existences. However, the reality seemed to be different from what he had imagined. The Quasi-King didn't attack the top experts, but instead locked onto a group of foreign creatures. What did that foreign creature do to cause the Quasi-King to be so angry and kill? This matter was destined to never be revealed. Many people were cursing the foreign creatures. This was because if those foreign creatures hadn't attracted the Quasi-King, perhaps none of this would have happened, and so many people wouldn't have died so tragically. However, what was the use of cursing those foreign creatures? The dead couldn't be revived. Lin Feng was more interested in the whereabouts of those foreign creatures. He went to inquire about the news. Lin Feng really did find out some news about the foreign creatures. It was said that most of the foreign creatures had been killed by the Quasi-King. However, there were still a few foreign creatures alive. The few foreign creatures that were alive were extremely terrifying, but they had all suffered extremely serious injuries in the battle with the Quasi-King. Moreover, other than the Quasi-King and his subordinates, there seemed to be some other cultivators from other forces who went to kill those foreign creatures, including the Holy Maiden. Someone saw the Holy Maiden fighting with a powerful foreign creature. Moreover, the Holy Maiden killed that foreign creature. After receiving this news, Lin Feng felt that the situation seemed to be much clearer. He felt that the key to this matter was those foreign creatures. However, Lin Feng wasn't interested in looking for those foreign creatures right now. Right now, he only wanted to find a quiet place to cultivate in seclusion. Lin Feng and the others set off and returned to the village. But Lin Feng had a feeling that something had happened in the Lake of 1,000 Beasts, and the Taotai was wreaking havoc everywhere. The village seemed to have become unsafe. The courtyard in the village was rented by Hong Yu. The rent was about to expire. Lin Feng did not plan to stay here, so he told Hong Yu not to renew the rent. Lin Feng planned to head to some towns where it should be safer. Lin Feng asked Hong Yu where the nearest town was. Then he told her his plan. Hong Yu and the others were a little hesitant. Lin Feng knew they were most likely worried about the immortal stones. The cost of going to the town was much higher than staying in the village. It was said that in some of the larger cities, the entrance fee would be 1,000 high-grade immortal stones per person. In addition, there were many other expenses such as renting a house, eating, and so on. There were still 13 people in the team. The expenses would be great. Hong Yu's immortal stones would not last for long. They had to be careful in their calculations in order to survive. Lin Feng told Hong Yu and the others not to worry about the immortal stones. He had a lot of them here. Moreover, Lin Feng flaunted his wealth a little. He took out a river of high-grade immortal stones. That was a total of 100 million high-grade immortal stones. When had Hong Yu and the others seen so many high-grade immortal stones? After seeing those high-grade immortal stones, Hong Yu and the others almost fainted from fright. End of this chapter.